And let the crew in for a minute. Good evening, good evening. Okay. Look like everybody's logging in.
Hello from Baltimore.
Hey, Baltimore. Ready to get these gems from Brian?
Hello.
Hello there. How's it going?
Fine. This is Charmaine Food Jonesy from DC.
Okay, DC in the house. Okay.
Good evening, Naka from Minneapolis here.
How are you? How are you?
Doing okay, thank you.
That's good.
Monica from Orlando.
Okay. Did I see you yesterday?
Yes,
No?
ma'am, you did. Gave me the
Okay.
best hug too.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Elsa from Austin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Very
It's
good.
Larice from Chicago. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Crystal from ATL. Hey.
Hey, I got ATL in the house. Okay.
Tramicia from Houston. Hello, everyone.
Hello there. Okay.
Mary from Charlotte.
Okay, Charlotte.
Angie from Fort Lauderdale and currently in Syracuse.
Okay.
Natasha from London.
Okay, we've got some distance going on. See, we're about to change some lives all over the world, Brian. All over the world.
Let's do it. I like it.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, Jamil. Okay, so we're going to bring up the host. We're going to get this party started. One sec. All right. Okay, you can see myself. I don't see myself in here. We have everybody. Okay, cool. Can you hear me? All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me just start out by saying that we have a group of just very positive, motivated individuals who just ready to take things to the next level, just want to understand and have a lot of questions. And, you know, I do a lot of master classes and mentorship and things of that nature. And there's just some questions that we just kind of keep coming up over and over again, you know, and like I told them, I said, you know, if it's not broke, I don't fix it. You know, I've been doing trademarks with you for quite some time. Have many trademarks, but a lot of people, there's still a lot of questions around there. What comes first? The entity? Do I need this? Do I need to trademark the name? Do I need to trademark the logo? So just really a lot of questions, but how I would like to get started, because I know, you know, I'm calling out trademark, but there's many things that you guys do under your company, but I would love for you to kind of get an intro to who you are, the name of your company, and the things that you guys do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to see a lot of these faces, and I'm in Austin, Texas, so I heard some shout outs from Texas, so special welcome to them. So Brian Hall, I manage a law firm, Traverse Legal. We have offices in many different locations. I'm in Austin, we're out in LA, up in Michigan, and elsewhere. Our firm really does three things: corporate and business, intellectual property, and technology law. And we represent anyone from founders all the way to established companies and you know, corporations and entities. So my practice, I've been practicing law almost 15 years. So if you're thinking, who's this kid talking to me, this young guy, I get it all the time, so I'm good with that. And I know the alternative's worse. So yeah, I've been practicing law 15 years, have worked with Courtney for probably a decade at least of that. It's been a long time. We've grown up together a little bit, right? So my practice does both litigation and transactional work, such as filing for trademarks and advising companies. And like I said, founders before they have companies and en route to growing companies. And it's a topic I'm passionate about. So let's make this interactive. I'm happy to answer questions. I have an overview and a presentation I can go through as well. So you point me in a direction, Courtney. I'm flexible.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely kind of, get started out. One thing I really love is a lot of Q&A. So I know a lot of people have burning questions, and most of them questions will probably be the same. So we definitely will call up the audience in a couple of minutes. But I think the biggest question that I always get is, when do you trademark? When do you trademark? And again, what are you trademarking from an entrepreneur perspective?
Yeah, good question. So just so we're all speaking the same language, right? When we're talking about trademarks, we're talking about it's either a word or a phrase or an image or logo that is distinctive and pertains only to that provider of whatever goods or services go with it, right? So, Nike has a trademark on the word Nike. Nike has a trademark on the swoosh logo. Nike has a trademark on the phrase, just do it, right? So they have all these intellectual property protections that they've gone and secured, and then they obviously monetize it through licensing and other things, and then they protect it. They sue people when they make uses they shouldn't make. So as a company, and whether you're a founder and you've started your company or not, one of the first things that people always think about is, what am I going to call my company? How, I'm not going to operate as Brian Hall. I'm going to operate as Traverse Legal. That's the name of my law firm. So early on, typically the branding discussion comes into play. And it's at that point in time that I always recommend, let's do a search. Let's make sure what you're picking for a brand and a company name isn't taken by someone else that could expose you to risk of trademark infringement, for example. So it's usually that early part of your formation where you're focused on branding, and as a result, trademark work.
Okay. One thing that I get, and I think it'd be cool to kind of shed a little bit of light on, is different industries and categories. So if you have a name, let's just say, something cool, Coffee Clique, let's just say, but I want to trademark in a different category. Let's just say hair care, can you trademark in another area? Because just because someone has a name in one category, does that mean they automatically have, trademarks everywhere in all categories?
So good question. And just to make sure we're all talking the same thing, the first person to make use of a mark, as long as it's distinctive, meaning it can't just be a generic word or describe what they're selling, for example, as long as it's distinctive, the first to make use of it by selling something with it has rights in it. What Courtney's talking about also is you can go file a trademark registration with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and then other countries have their own, to get additional rights and benefits. And as part of that process, you have to select which goods or services you're using the mark with. So let's use an example. What Courtney is referring to, it happens all the time. Somebody looks up, they get on Google, they search for the brand or trademark they want to use, and they see there's all kinds of stuff out there. But it may not have any relation to what they plan to offer. So for example, Delta, right? Delta is a trademark of the airline company. Delta's a trademark of the faucet manufacturer. Delta's a trademark of the insurance provider. So the reason all of them can have the same trademark to the same word is because there's no likelihood of consumer confusion. And that is a legal term of art that you have to establish if you want to say someone's infringing on your mark. And the point behind that is simple. Nobody's going to think when they go buy a Delta faucet that it was also from the same person that you jump on an airplane and fly to see somebody on. It just wouldn't happen. So they could peacefully coexist in the market without that likelihood of consumer confusion. And that's why, to Courtney's question, just because you get on Google, for example, and you're starting out and you search the brand you want, it doesn't necessarily mean you're dead in the water. It should be analyzed, and you should think about it and make sure, if possible, talk to a trademark attorney and get advice on it. But you have to think about, is there something in this mark and with these goods and services that would confuse a consumer.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Courtney?
Yeah, perfect sense, perfect sense. And then we get the question, what comes first? Do you form your entity first, or do you trademark your name first? What do you
Yeah.
think comes first?
Yeah, so typically I advise to first do your company. And the reason for that is when you then go to secure your trademark registration, you can file for it in the name of your company. And there's a couple benefits to that. One, it insulates you from personal liability typically. So if you were going to go run a business without starting an entity and file for a trademark as an individual, only to have somebody come say that you're infringing their trademark, you could be sued individually and you could be liable for damages. If you do it as part of your company, there's a layer of legal separation there. So you can insulate yourself from liability. The other reason, quite frankly, put the law to the side. To me, having an entity is an appearance of legitimacy. It makes you look like you have your stuff together, right? And having a conversation with a prospective customer or supplier or distributor, whatever it might be, if you're operating as an individual, it just raises red flags, right? They want to know that you're an entity. They want to know they're dealing with somebody that has their legal house in order, so to speak. So there's that practical effect that again always makes me say, let's get an entity formed, whether it's an LLC, a corporation, whatever it might be. Let's build that legal house in the right order. Entity formation, trademark filed. You're then doing contracts in the name of your company, not individually, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask a question that I'm really curious about because this one kind of baffles me a little bit. So you got a company, right? So say you want to call it Cheese Crackers. That's the name we're going to call it. And you got a company out there and they've called their company Cheese Crackers and they've been operating, but they never trademark. Let's say they've been out there for a couple of years, right? Cheese Crackers, been operating, selling cheese crackers. Then here you come, you want to actually trademark it, right? Why does it seem like there's a conflict when in fact, in my head, the law is there so you can get your stuff in order to do it the right way? Why do we have to now take into consideration that this company has already been operating? But if they're not operating the way that they should be, why does the person who's now trying to get their stuff in order, why do they have to take theirs into consideration? It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it goes back to what I touched upon earlier. The first person to make use of a distinctive mark has rights to it, regardless of if you file the trademark application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And those rights are called common law trademark rights. So you're not having a registration, you're only having what's called common law trademark rights. But you only have those rights in the locations that you've made sales. Whereas if you've only sold in, let's say, Texas and Missouri, yet you file a trademark application and get it registered, you then get what's called nationwide priority, meaning throughout the United States, you have rights. However, if someone had those common law rights in a state before you, you wouldn't in that one state, for example. So the law is not crystal clear on this, which makes it difficult for founders to go in, select a mark and have confidence because they can ultimately get a registered trademark. But if they were not first, they could be subject to claims of trademark infringement and have their trademark invalidated. So, Courtney's talking about this situation because whether you're starting a new company or just picking new brands as you grow a company, it's this process that has to be followed. And, for better or for worse, lawyers have to be involved at that process because the search is going to give you insight into, could there be somebody out there that's going to mess with what I think are my rights in the future?
Right. And this is why again, if it's not broke, I don't fix it kind of thing. People can definitely try to do things themselves. I never have from the start. Like from the start, I think you guys were Yeah, you guys are the first to even trademark the main choice. Well, I think was the first thing I've ever trademarked, but it's so many loopholes that you guys can see. It's so many loopholes and questions and things that you need to know. And for me, this is why I think a lot of small businesses are not in a position to scale and do big business because there's so many legal things that come into place that we just don't do. And one thing that I tried my best to do off the rip when I started my company was get everything in order legally. From the worst case scenario, I'm like, I know I have to have my trademark. I know I have to have an entity. I know I have to have these things at least. So when I got to the point where I didn't know if I ever wanted to sell a company or not, but I had my ducks in order. So there was no question about, can I get a deal done? You know what I mean? So while some of these things you may think is like, oh, well, I don't need that just yet. It's really important because you do not know your future. You do not know when things are going to take off. Like you just have no idea. So again, this is why when I ask these questions, Brian, no, I'm asking for my own because I asked him to hurt me. He's like, oh, well, that name is, I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Shouldn't the law be, I got to it first legally and I'm trying to do it the right way. But as you can see, you know, it's the law. And this is why I advise going through an attorney because it's just like anything else. There's so many loopholes. And I don't want to get to a point where I'm like, hey, I got $100 million deal on the line. It's like, oh, you didn't do this right. You didn't do that right just because over something that's small. So again, this is why we even having this session tonight, because I want to call in you guys in to ask some questions because a lot of things we don't know. And there's some things I'm gonna tell you, I could do a lot of things myself, but there's some things that I'm not playing no games with. I don't want to have any issues in regards to me scaling my business, me trying to get into a store and I don't have ownership or what I think I have ownership for. So there are some things that's up front that's going to require a sacrifice. And for me, this is definitely one of them.
Can I make a quick comment to that?
Yes.
Courtney? So I totally agree. And the thing that's hard about trademark law is it's so subjective, right? So we're in this gray area, which clients hate to hear. I hate having to play in that area. I know as a founder of a company, you want certainty. You want to make a decision, you want to stick, you want to move, right? On to the next problem. Let's go, right? Be a founder, be an entrepreneur. But trademark is just this weird area that doesn't allow that to happen. And the thing that's so important about it is it's going to be your brand and be with you for a long time. And like Courtney said, you don't know where you're going to end up if you're going to have acquisition opportunities in the future. If something's wrong with the brand associated with your goods or services, that's a reputational issue that goes far beyond just the legal X's and O's we might talk about today. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. The other thing I'll say, relatively speaking, securing a trademark is one of the cheaper legal things that you'll have to do over the course of your company. It really is. You know, just to give everybody a sense, I mean, there's websites now that help you do trademarks. You know, attorneys have sort of figured out what that number should be. You know, you're spending $1,500 or less typically to get your trademark registered. So I'm not saying that's not a lot of money, but at the end of the day, comparatively speaking to some of the stuff you'll do as a company and a founder and an operator, it's not as bad. So.
That's true. That's true. There were some basic things when they're like, okay, you considering, you know, getting any type of deal done. Do you have this? Do you have that? And that was definitely one of them. I was with confidence. I'm like, Brian did it. I got it. You know,
Gotcha.
You want to be confident with those questions. Like seriously, like a huge deal. And you're right. There's a lot of things that you're going to need. And that's why I'm like, when I'm mentoring someone or we doing the master classes, I'm like, there's just some things we're going to have to spend money on. And there's some things I think we can kind of put to the side, you know, and kind of grow. But yeah, we could let's bring in a couple of questions, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. I have a question, Brian. I already got a trademark. However, it was a long fight to get a trademark. I am a registered dietitian. So when I initially trademarked my logo, Food Jonesy, the profession the Academy of Nutrition Dietetic, they opposed my trademark because of my credentials. So I was a little bit caught off guard and confused because since I am a registered dietitian, I didn't think anything was wrong with putting registered dietitian nutrition in my trademark. However, we went through a long battle of going back and forth. I couldn't pay all of those lawyer fees. So we wind up just taking out registered dietitian nutritionist out of my logo, which is, I think, better. It looks better now. But I wanted to ask, was that right? I mean, was the Academy being very selfish to actually go after me for putting the credentials, or do that profession or that large organization have that right to go after small businesses because I guess simply by using a credential?
Yeah, good question. So, I can't really comment on the merits. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other, but what I'll say is this, Charmaine. A trademark owner has an affirmative duty to protect their brand or they can lose it. Put another way, if you think you have trademark rights and you see somebody infringing you and you don't take action, it could lead to invalidation of your trademark rights in the future if you need to enforce them. So whether they were being a trademark bully, which is a term in the industry, or if they were merely doing their job and relying upon a trademark that they spent money to get and associate the goodwill with it, with their company, it's hard to say, but there's definitely more motivation than just trying to, I'd say, stomp out the little guy, so to speak, right?
That's the thing, a credential is not trademark. So it's just a credential. So I don't know if they was really, I think they were bullying based on what my trademark lawyer was stating, but it's now they're actually putting out this cease to desist. I think I said that properly. Order on anyone who uses that credential in their trademark. So is that right? It's just a credential. It's not like a marking. It's a credential.
Yeah. So if it's not protected as a trademark, they could still be doing that because they don't want to create any false association with the people who actually have gone through the process to become a registered dietitian, right? Mm-hmm. So think about realtors, right? Everybody calls them realtors. That's a protected mark. That's a term of art where a license is required, and they don't want people that don't have that license to use it. So ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, based upon the limited amount of information you provided, while I'm sorry it happened to you, right, and you were put in that position as a founder and an entrepreneur, I'm not entirely surprised by the fact pattern, and I could see why they were trying to do what they did.
Okay. Well, after like 2 long years of fighting, and I was just like, forget it. So I just wound up taking the credential out of it. The credential just kind of distinguished registered dietitians from nutritionists. So everyone always want that RD in their name because it's so credentialed. So
yeah, some things that I've noticed that some things is not worth the fight, because from a financial perspective, you could do all of this stuff back and forth, and then ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't have any weight in regards to the success of your business. Right. So there are some things that we had to do in our industry. Not necessarily from a trademark perspective, but just kind of across the board from an FDA perspective to say. So like the word natural or organic, things like that, we all had to pull from our products. Well, for me, I was trying to fight a lot of things and I'm like, you know what, let me just do some changes and do XYZ, because you could stay in court and rack up all these legal fees over stuff that may not hold as much weight as it needs to anyway, So every battle out there, there's some battles to fight, but again, when it comes to things like that, one thing I had to learn, like he said, any type of description, colors, I was trying to, you'll learn so many things. Like I'll take another thing that I thought was interesting, using like racist, like you couldn't say like the word like black women something. So I was trying to figure out how did BET get around it, like Black Entertainment, but how they got around it was trademarking BET and not actually the Black Entertainment that we call it. So there's so many, like you said, there's so many like great areas of the trademark law that we just don't know. And like I said, the best to me, when in doubt, definitely work with somebody. But every battle out there is definitely not worth fighting to me.
Right.
It's not, when you got, you know, so much more things to do and you can put those funds in branding your business.
Yep. Absolutely. But yeah, it was a hard lesson for me to learn. It was a valuable lesson. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I do have a question for you, Brian. We could keep rolling too. My question is from a international perspective. Some people think when you get something trademarked, let's say here in the United States, you're protected everywhere, right? And when I've noticed, every attorney, they don't necessarily do other countries. You know, let's just say one of the bigger ones, China. You get stuff made in China. Meanwhile, you know, they're, you know what I mean? They're like redoing your stuff and all of that good stuff. So can you just talk a little bit about from an international perspective, like you legit have to go to each country if you want to get things trademarked, right?
That's right. That's right. Trademark rights are territorial, it's called. So if you have a trademark in the United States, doesn't give you protection in Canada, for example, or China or other places. So the question then becomes, all right, so I want to be protected there. Sounds expensive. What do I do? Right? There's a lot of countries out there. So there's a couple things that we talk about fairly often when we're advising clients in that, you know, sort of expansion role, especially ones that, you know, with the advent of the internet, right? Everybody's global to a certain extent. So how do you manage that? And what we say is find out where you think your highest and best sales are going to be and focus on those countries, and then grow as the revenue allows you to continue to expand your scope of trademark protection.
Right.
Fortunately, there are some, and I won't get into the details too much of it, but there's treaties and other things that you can rely upon to get protection in multiple countries. So for example, there's one that you don't have to file in every country in Europe. You can go through what's called the Madrid Protocol, rely upon your USPTO trademark registration, then gives you protection throughout Europe. Okay, all the countries in the
That's vital, y'all. Say that again. Repeat that one more time.
Yeah, you can get protection through all the European Union countries as long as you have a US trademark and rely upon it. So it's a filing that can be made. It's faster, it's cheaper, etc.
And I say that that's vital because that is a top, from what I can see from the business that I've done, that's definitely outside of what Canada, that's definitely the next area to be trademarked from the business that we do.
Yeah, and you know, Canada, Mexico, obviously, you know, sistering countries are very important. You know, China is an interesting one because quite frankly, China doesn't respect and enforce IP like the United States and some other countries. So you may go through the effort to secure a trademark registration, but you may not be able to enforce it as well as you could in the United States.
Right.
That being said, you know, again, if that's going to be a very important part of your business, you know, having one and being able to rely upon it with third parties is important. So for example, if somebody's putting counterfeit merchandise on a website, you could submit information to the web host and rely upon some of your registrations and potentially have them cooperate to have it taken down. So there's more optionality when you have registered trademarks than if you don't. And that's across the board, country agnostic. Doesn't matter which country. If you have registered trademarks, you should be able to do a little bit better and a little bit faster when it comes to removing online infringement, counterfeiters, etc.
Okay. Thank you. Very good information. Very good information. Okay, we can pull in someone else. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a nugget right there because, whew.
Trademark nuggets. There's a lot of them, unfortunately, right?
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I don't have a picture. This is
Okay.
Fran from Baltimore. Thank you so much, Courtney, for taking the time to do this evening. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
I'll try to get everything out. I have a product that's been doing extremely well. It's one of many products that I make. My question is, should I trademark it now? And do I have to trademark all the different varieties? So when I say varieties, I'm talking about aromas. So I have about 10 different aromas of one product. How does trademark work in that instance?
Good question. So a trademark's not going to protect the product. It's going to protect the brand name or logo or whatever you're putting on that product. So
Okay.
the aromas, the different aromas you mentioned,
Yes.
Give me an example of one.
Okay,
say-
so it's a body care product. It's a deodorant, and one of the aromas is mango.
Okay. So you wouldn't be able to protect, for example, the mango part, right? It's descriptive of, I'm sure, the scent, right? But whatever the product itself is, that brand name, you can protect. So, when we're talking trademarks, we talked a lot about at the outset of company name and the logo or brand being the same as that. But when you get into where you have many product lines, yes, it's advisable to protect those lines as well, because oftentimes that brand associated with the line, not necessarily what's called the house mark or company one, is just as valuable. And in the event of a merger or acquisition or a purchase of part of that, they're going to want to make sure that you have protection on it.
So if I'm trademarking the product that's doing well, and I have other products that are the revenues are not as high, should I protect them as well now?
It's a
Just
great
to prevent
question.
them from being snatched up from somebody who's looking at me as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's a budget question, right? The easy lawyer answer is, yeah, go trademark everything. Right? But the reality is you need to be right sized in what you're doing. Like Courtney was saying, don't fight every fight. You also, probably shouldn't trademark everything unless the revenue is allowing you to do so. And still, you want to prioritize it, right? Based upon your financials, which is doing better than the others. Start there and then work your way through if you can't just do them all at once.
And then what I did with my collections too, because obviously we had a zillion and one collections at the Main Choice. And I can't say every single collection I trademarked, but anything that I felt was like really distinctive, those are the things that I trademarked. So just say, for instance, anything like Maintabolism, do a Fruticulture, doesn't get much better than this. Like anything that I felt was like different versus peach black tea. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like something like that. I'm like, I'm just kind of calling it peach black tea. It's not a big deal. But anything that I felt like was a name that I actually created or something that was really different are the things that I decided to trademark, because I had to do the same thing. Like we had a zillion and one collection. Right. So am I going to trademark every single thing? Or is it just going to be those things that if someone else made another one like peach black tea, I'm like, but if somebody else come out with another Maintabolism, well, that's a problem. Like, you know what I mean? So again, I kind of had to weigh and see what really makes sense and what was really creative and what do I see as really like an issue if someone tried to like infringe.
And so let me ask you, and I think you're doing this now, Courtney, with your Cool Coffee Clique, which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Monthly subscription services, is that a trademark item?
It is. Yeah, it's a service offering. It's something that you could have when you file with the USPTO. You could designate it as that. So usually there's more than one listing that you're pursuing when you're going after a mark, right? And it's not just, for example, like coffee mugs, those types of things. There's typically other ones that when you really sit and think about what is the actual offering, there's more. And that scope, that breadth.
Apparel, really, a lot of other things.
Right. So is there like a package that you look for to do all of that at one time, or is it just piece by piece, or?
It is piece by piece.
By piece.
You know,
Yep.
there's no one.
And we do, and then sometimes I add on things. Like say for instance, when I first started, I'm like, okay, I wouldn't necessarily like have shirts or something like that. But as we develop new things, I'm like, oh, send an email over to the firm, let them know we got something else to trademark, got a new category. So it's a piece by piece. I wouldn't say you need to go in there with every single thing, because at the end of the day, if you try to trademark something and you don't have those products, you only have a certain amount of time, right, Brian, to produce something that's saying you legit creating this product. And I think you get how many months or something?
Yeah, so from filing, once you file your trademark application, if you haven't used it yet in commerce, you can file what's called an intent to use application.
Mhm.
That the importance with that is it gives you that filing date, that priority date, right? Because remember, whoever's first wins. So it gives you that priority date. And then there'll come a time where the USPTO will review it and say, okay, now you have 6 months to show me proof of use and tell me the date that you first made use of it. And you can file extensions on that. So you could get up to 6 extensions. So
Right.
3 years total
Right.
to provide your proof of use.
I've used it. I'd be like, run it again. Run it again.
No doubt.
I mean, it come in handy. Like I said, especially in those areas that you know you're like really passionate about doing something. Like, so you know you're going to make a product in that category, but you haven't done it just yet. Something like that really do come in handy, because the worst thing you want to happen is someone to kind of piggyback off of what you're doing.
Exactly.
And here they go in a category that you already knew you was going to make a product in that particular category.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we got a couple more we can do. And like he said, you know, don't feel as if you have to do everything at once, like little bit. I don't know how many trademarks we have there with them, but again, it's a little bit, another one, add on, another one, add it on. So don't feel so overwhelmed like you got to grow. Worst case scenario, get your basic things trademark that you're going to feel very comfortable with doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Who we got coming up? Miss Morgan.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you. I'm so
Wonderful.
excited to meet you.
Same.
Thank you. I just had a question. How much would trademark fees cost, and including the cost of an attorney?
Yeah.
On average, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a range, right? But I'll just tell you what we do. We do flat fees on trademark work, meaning you're not going to pay hourly fees. So there's really a 2-step process. You first do a trademark search and availability assessment. It's not required, but it's highly advised, because if you pick a brand that is taken, you just threw your money away and maybe subjecting yourself to claims of trademark infringement. So that first step is about $1,000. And then the second, actual filing the trademark application, I said before, around 1,500 is I'd say sort of market. But bear in mind, the more classes you add, there's higher filing fees. So it's anywhere from $250 to $350 per class of whatever the good is in the application. So from a budget standpoint, I always say if you set aside $2,500 for your trademark efforts, you'll get in the game for sure.
Yeah.
The
Cool.
US game, I should say. You ain't going
Right.
anywhere.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, just working with people, what I found out, and again, my rule of thumb, it's not broke, don't fix it. Everybody don't do international. Everybody don't do other countries. And that's something that I've definitely found out. So even if you're thinking about expanding, definitely try to make sure you're working with people, who have the capabilities to do so. Okay. Next. Crystal, you said?
Hello. Actually, you answered it partially, but what is a statement? What is it? The intent to use a statement or the statement of use? Well, how is that different?
Yeah, so when you file an intent to use trademark application, you ultimately, before it will register, have to file a statement of use.
Okay.
And all that is like I said, it's you provide an example, a specimen of how the mark's being used on the good or service, and you tell them the first date that you used it in commerce, meaning sold something.
Okay.
So the only time you're doing a statement of use is when you do an intent to use application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Cool. Okay, pulling a couple more, got a couple more minutes. You said Jennifer? Jennifer Morgan, we're gonna pull you in. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I have a question. I have an LLC, and my question is, would you all suggest getting getting the brand copyrighted first, or I'm sorry, I thought my copyright first or trademark?
Yep. So I think I understand the question. Just to be clear, you wouldn't get a copyright on your brand. Copyright's a different type of intellectual property. You would be getting a trademark on the brand. So order operations, hopefully entity formed, then go pursue your trademark.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, or do you have something else on copyright specifically?
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Ms. Gray?
I'm not sure why my video wasn't popping up.
Hi.
Hi.
Crazy.
I don't know. There's a lot of feedback.
See a little feedback. Hang on, we'll make sure we good. Okay.
Okay, so I was asking, I'm a published author and I've kind of expanded the book title into an apparel line, and I plan on doing more stuff from there. Do I need to actually trademark that phrase since it's already a book title, or is it good? Is that the different classes that you guys were talking about? How does that process work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So interestingly enough, you all probably won't be surprised by this statement at this point, given how weird trademark law is, but a book title of a single book cannot be protected by a trademark. It has to be a series. So the Harry Potter series can be a protectable trademark in connection with books because there's a series, but a single title cannot. Put that to the side. If you're using the title of your book in connection with some other good or service, yes, you should trademark it in connection with whatever you're using it in.
Okay, where'd she go? Ms. Gray? Is she, hang on. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm gonna mute her.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. That answers my question. I just need to write some more books too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, got a couple more minutes. I think we just seen, huh? Miss Grant, how are you?
Hey, Courtney.
Hey, long time no see.
I know. I sent you something. Hopefully you receive it.
Okay, I'm gonna check into it.
So my question is, if you rebrand, like let's say you start out with one logo, one design, and you apply for your trademark, but then you rebrand, 6 months later, do you need to redo all of your trademark stuff?
Yep, the short answer is yes, which is also why oftentimes when you're filing a trademark, you choose to not do the logo. You choose to just do the words that are part of the logo so that if you do make a change in the future, you still have some coverage. But in an ideal world, you do all those things. So with the main choice, I remember, you know, we did the logo, we did the main choice, the words themselves, you know, we sort of did blanket protection, but you know, the short answer is anytime you make a change to what was registered, means you gotta start over and refile.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for doing this, Mr. Hall. This is awesome information.
You bet. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll do one more and then we'll kind of start wrapping up this first session. Who do you got, Miss Sullivan? Miss Lynch? While she's coming in, someone asked about a blanket protection. They want you to clarify what a blanket protection is.
Good question. When I use the term blanket protection, I mean you're protecting the word itself or words as well as the logo, and then you're doing it across any of your goods. And
okay. Perfect.
Hello?
And hi, how are you?
Hey, thank you for having me. My question is, if you have a product line, but now you want to open up a suite, do you need to change your trademark to include the suite in it, or you need to get a whole new one, a separate one?
Tell me a little bit more when you say a suite.
Sound like she talked about going into another category. So the name is the same. So she's probably talking about like a brick and mortar type of place, but it's the name of her product as well.
Yep, got it. So the short answer is yes, you need to file in connection with whatever you add on there. So it's like what Courtney was talking about before, right? You might start with just, you know, apparel, but then you start doing mugs, for example. Every time you do those, you should do a new filing and expand it.
So you don't need a whole new one. You just bringing in new categories. You're expanding to new categories.
You technically file a new trademark application. Once your application's filed or registered, you can't amend it, meaning add new products or services. So effectively, it's the same mark, right? But you're just adding those as part of a new application.
This is why I give you like 1,000 categories when I first get started. Now I'm coming back to me.
No doubt.
And then my months run out and you're like, where are products at? So yeah, that makes sense. That is true. That is true. That is true. So yeah, so what do you think would be the next steps for people who are interested in working with your firm? What do you think the next steps for them should be? Who do they contact? Can you give us a little information?
Yeah, sure. I'll put, I'm putting my email in the comment section right now. So feel free to email me. If you go to our website, traverselegal.com, there's a ton of trademark information available. The other thing that I did years and years ago, I did a YouTube video where I walk through and teach how to file a trademark application. So it's free. I put it online. Obviously there's specifics that, you know, would need to be talked about for yours, but if you're looking to self-help and you don't have legal funds, for example, hopefully that gives you something and is helpful. But yeah, feel free to reach out. You know, me and my team do this all day, every day. Always happy to have conversations about it.
Somebody said, how often do they expire?
Trademarks in the US need to be renewed every 5 years.
Okay.
And as long as you renew them, they don't have an expiration.
Okay, cool. Very helpful information. This was absolutely great. We learned a lot. I know I learned a lot myself. So thank you so much for this. And like I said, we'll definitely get the information and things like that back out. But thank you so much for donating your time tonight. I really appreciate this. And I think it was very, very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciated being on and wish everybody best of luck. It was great seeing faces.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed night, Brian.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. And I will do a I don't necessarily need to do a break. So we'll keep it rolling. We have the next attorney coming in. Give her a couple of minutes. So when we're talking about taxes, tax preparation, and trust, that's like a whole nother world. A world I hate, but we in it, so we got to do what we got to do. So we have to learn how to. I started working with her because normally, when you work our traditional, 9 to 5, we get a person to do our taxes. That's kind of the way we operate, right? Somebody said, where is his information? My team, if we can get that put in the chat, that would be great. Cool. So anyways, I learned about tax preparation and tax planning, because there's a lot of things that you can do, and not even just businesses, really, to be honest. There's so many things you can do before it's time to do your taxes. And some things you just flat out need time for. So if you didn't prepare properly, like I took some major hits because of just not knowing, just not understanding, just not. Listen, I try to do some stuff. We talk about 24 hours before the year hit, I'm like, you sure I can't do this? I can't do that. I can't donate here, again. So that's a whole different, world. But then we talk about the trust part, which I really want her to shed some light on as well too, because we've got a lot of questions in regard to that. Like, do you have to be in a certain bracket before you start talking about trust, and what does all of that mean? So we're going to dive in. We can actually bring her on. We just have Brian's information in here. Like I said, every trademark that I have, I've done with him. I've had never trademark with anybody else. So I say that to say I'm bringing on people, people that I just trust, but people who I legit work with. So to me, that's definitely important to do. I don't want to have to trademark and try to hunt somebody down in another 2 or 3 years about some type of paperwork. So that's a big deal. So again, be real careful who you work with. Make sure that they're in it for the long haul, and I think you'll be good. So, all right. Hey, how are you?
Hi, Courtney. It's great to see you.
Oh, same. I miss you.
Thank you so much. I'm so impressed you got this many people to turn out to hear a tax attorney talk on a Sunday night. That's a real credit to you. I'm so impressed, as always.
Listen, we have some people who are trying to figure some things out, because I remember, I'm not going to say remember, I'm still trying to figure some things out. So my thing is, I'll always try to be what I always like. Okay, I wish somebody told me. I wish. So if I have those resources, I don't care if one person show up. I'm going to share that with people who want to listen, with people who trying to figure some things out, and who care. So let me just start out by saying that. Thank you so much for, again, I'm saying donating their time, because y'all know attorney charge $5,000 a minute. You know what I mean? So no, but no, I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Like you said, on the weekend, that's a big deal. But I have these conversations in the morning, and I keep getting the same questions. I'm like, let me just get a group of attorneys in, and we're going to hash it out. And like I said, this is just really just informal. We got people who want to ask you questions and just talk about various things. But anything that you feel that is beneficial, if it pops in your mind, just shed some light. We just had a great powwow about trademarking, and drop some amazing nuggets. But like I told them, I think when me and you started working with each other, I'm always up against the clock. I think it was like, Courtney, you should have came to me a year ago. You know what I mean? So I don't want that to happen to people. I want them to understand, because I never knew about an attorney that did tax planning. I just knew about getting my taxes, getting my W-2s, and filing. But tax planning, that's a whole different category.
Yes.
So if you could just tell them who you are, your name, and the company, all that good stuff, and some of the things, because I know you guys work with trust and like that too, and we got questions regarding that, but just some of the scope of what your practice actually do.
Sure. My name is Michelle Levin, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and Courtney especially. I mean, Courtney's one of the most amazing people that I have met in my career. I just want to say that off the bat. I'm sure all of you already know that, but she is incredible because she is so brilliant, so driven, but so genuine. You know, you never meet someone that when they tell you they appreciate what you do, they mean it. And I was thinking about it today before I spoke, and you know, what's so special, I think, about Courtney, which sets her apart from like any other person I've ever met, is that she genuinely cares about you. She makes you feel that way. And I think because she does, she really cares about everyone. And that's an incredible quality. And she's an incredible person. So I think, you know, I wanted to say thank you, Courtney, for having me on. And I just want to tell everyone here that y'all are so lucky, you know, to have this opportunity, because she's an incredible person. But probably everyone already knows that. I wanted to share it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm an attorney at a firm called Sorority and Permit, and actually we're merging next month into Denton. So I'll put my information in the, you know, in the chat at the end. But in a month from now, it'll be new, but my old email will work. And Denton's is actually the largest firm in the world. And we are going to be merging into it. And so that'll be a great opportunity. So we'll have tax experts all over the world. If you have assets anywhere in the world or need to transfer assets anywhere to and from, we'll be able to help you with that cross-border transaction. So it's a really wonderful opportunity. Sorority is a tax-focused firm. I think we have the most, we're in Alabama, and we have the most LLMs, with tax LLMs, which is a legal master's degree of any firm in Alabama. We do a lot of tax planning, estate planning, corporate tax planning, and also tax controversy. And so I kind of work in all those fields. I've been in the tax area for 15 years. And I was fortunate enough to meet Courtney a few years ago, and we worked with her. And, you know, we always are doing our best to, you know, help people save as much in taxes as possible. But sometimes people come and they say, what can I do to cut my taxes? I had to pay this much. I said, well, honestly, that means you're making a lot of money. So I think you should be pretty happy. But there are definitely certain strategies you can put into place, and just kind of planning in advance to maximize the tax benefits that you can claim. And I think all of us, you know, fail the tax code. Actually, I was going to show it. I have it right here. So it's always on my desk.
Yikes.
And, you know, it changes all the time, and no one knows all of it. And so you're just never going to know what you can or can't do, or what options you have available. So I think a lot of us miss even our own opportunities to save on taxes. And so I'm happy to be here tonight and tell y'all a little bit. I just want to give a disclaimer. I don't know if Brian did it, but obviously nothing I am presenting tonight is legal advice. It's for informational purposes only. And if you do, you know, want further legal advice, you're happy to reach out to me or anyone, but I'm here tonight for informational and entertainment purposes.
Sheila, let me get this disclaimer out. But yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. I don't know if you remember the first thing when you came in my office, the first thing I said to you, I was like, listen, I said, whoever did Donald Trump's taxes, that's who I want. I said, you know who did it?
Yes.
I said, I need some creativity, you know. But, you know, the interesting thing that I found out about that is, you know, it's about having enough time to actually plan. And that's the part, like I said, that I totally miss. Just, you know, growing up, you know, not really being exposed to things. Again, you know, I would go to H&R Block to get my taxes done, and that's that. But, you know, going through some huge transitions, you always want to be ready. You know, I work with some people, some CPAs that really jacked me up. Let me just say that. Jacked me all up. I had to go to Michelle, like, how do we fix this? Just some really, you know, you just have to understand who you're working with from CPAs. And one thing that I found out is that so many people that you work with should be connected. You know what I mean? Like whoever's doing your taxes, because they're not going to do your taxes, they're doing the planning. So they need to be connected with, and there are some things that we've done, and she's like, Courtney, no, you don't want to do this, don't do that. I'm like, they just did it. You know, so you will be surprised. Again, my plan is to introduce you to people, even whether you feel like it's time for it or not, at some point it's going to be. Let me just say that at some point it's going to be. And now whether for you to know up front a fresh year versus being at the end of December, whenever, trying to figure some things out that just shouldn't be. So again, we do want to take some questions in a minute, but I do want to talk about estate planning and having a trust and how to kind of operate. So if you could shed any type of light on that, because some people don't even know exactly what that is. And what level do you think is time to start incorporating or paying attention to those areas?
Okay, so first thing I'd say is that anytime, you know, if you have any sort of assets, anytime is a good time to start an estate plan, because if you don't do it, then the state is going to do it. And if the state is going to do it, they're going to charge you for it. And so then that just reduces the amount of assets that are available to go to your heirs. And the other downside of having the state do it is that you have no say over who gets what. You know, there's certain rules, each state is different about how the disposition of assets will take place if you pass away intestate. That's without a will. So you should always go ahead and do an estate plan. I mean, even if you don't have any assets, even if you have just young children, that's another good reason to do an estate plan, because then you can say who's going to be their guardian if you pass away. Otherwise, it's up to the state. So I would say you should always go ahead and get a will in place, and not just a will. You also want to get a power of attorney in place. If you become incapacitated in some way, but you're still alive, you want to have that so that people can act on your behalf. You might want a healthcare directive, you know, to say whether or not you should stay on life support or whether to pull the plug. You should go ahead and have that in place. That just makes things a lot easier for your family and the folks that are going to be taking care of you if anything ever happens. As far as like the trust, and the trust that most people use for estate planning purposes is a revocable trust. And that is actually more of an asset protection, like estate administration tool versus a tax tool. So most people right now, the estate exemption is really high, like $11 million per person. And then it's 22 for a married couple. So most people are not going to get into that exemption amount. But I can talk about some estate planning techniques for that as well, because if you are, like, if you have a business worth that much, you definitely need to plan ahead. Because if you pass away and your business is worth $100 million, that's great, but now you're going to have to pay $40 million in estate taxes. And how are you going to do that? Because in order to do that, you basically have to liquidate the business. So I guess I got kind of far off the tangent, but the trust is really something that you can create at any time. And most people create a revocable trust, and then you can put all your assets in there. So it's one thing to create it and then you have it on paper, but then the next step is really to, you know, be able to move your assets. And there are probably major things like, you know, bank accounts, you know, you might want to be able to, or you can put it in the trust document that they're all part of your revocable trust. And so that way, if you pass away, it's already in the trust. And so that stuff does not have to be probated. And that's why a lot of people will create a trust early on, so that they can have so that they can avoid the probation or going through probate for those assets. Now, it doesn't spare them from the estate tax. It's still considered part of your estate, but they don't have to go through the will and how to dispose of it pursuant to a will. And what you'll do is a trust document will have, you know, beneficiaries, how the assets are to be disposed, a trustee. And so these are all important considerations. It has to be someone that you trust. You know, you want to make sure that you have the right terms for your beneficiaries. How quickly do you want them to have the assets? You know, what kind of decisions do you want the trustee to be able to make with respect to the beneficiaries? And you should probably update it, you know, every couple of years, just to make sure nothing has changed in the tax law or nothing has changed in your life.
Somebody wants to know, what does revocable mean in regards to trust?
Oh, that's a great question. So revocable trust means that you can just undo it at any time, like everything's in a trust. Oh, and another benefit of the trust I should have mentioned is asset protection. So when you put things in a trust, it protects you from creditors. It can also protect you potentially from, you know, a bad divorce. That's another reason why people, or, you know, you might put assets in for your children in trust because you're worried about them going through a bad divorce. But revocable means that you can undo it at any time, basically revoke it, say the trust goes away, or change it. And benefit of that is, again, it gives you flexibility. So causes all of the income that the trust earns to flow through to your personal tax return. And that's a good thing because actually trusts are taxed at much lower income rate. Like the trust tax rates are at much lower income levels than like the individual. So from your perspective, you'll save tax if it goes through a revocable trust as opposed to an irrevocable trust or a separate trust, because they're taxed. I think, I don't remember, I think it's like $1,200, a very low number at which income level at which they have to start paying taxes.
Who should own the trust, you or your business?
So you can be the, well, the grantor is going to be the person that starts the trust. So that can be whoever owns the assets, right? And so you can put, if you have a business, if you own it as like an S Corp, you can put your shares of the business into the trust. Or if you own it as an LLC, you can put your shares of the business into the trust. So you will be the grantor, the person, and then you can put basically the business into the trust, and then that will be, and then the trust will provide for how the business will be broken up, or disposed. And there's other ways you can also, handle the disposition of a business after your death. But if you put it in the trust, you would put basically your ownership interest in the business in the trust, and then once you die, it becomes irrevocable, and that's when the trust goes into effect. And so all the terms of the trust are applicable.
Okay. I'm trying to read this.
And I apologize. I'm getting over a cold. So if I like blow my nose, I'm so sorry. I know it's embarrassing.
That's okay.
I'm glad I have this cup to drink my tea.
There you go. Now you're going to get better now. Now
I'm going to get better. My lucky mug.
That's right. Somebody says, so if you have a partner, I can play. Oh, that's all. Okay, before I ask your question, I was trying to think of my question. You were the first person. So when I was creating like all of my like entities, which I always start like with an LLC at first, and then as we're going through the whole tax stuff, when we get to that point where it's time to change to something else, we do that. But you were the only one that came back was like, okay, what is the name of that document you always ask me in regards to like the shares and the ownership? Because you could get the LLC, you can get that, but there's another document you always ask me for, like
the operating agreement. You have the articles of incorporation. That's all you need to incorporate the entity. And then the operating agreement should have, the percentage interest. And if it's an S Corp, you'll have like the shares, and then you can buy or sell shares or redeem shares, and those are separate documents, and you'll have to keep like a stock ledger so you'll know who owns the shares and where they were transferred to.
Because even if you got an LLC, you need one of those, right?
An LLC is a little different. It's it's like a partnership. It's a limited liability company. It's taxed as a partnership, and usually they have membership interests, not shares. And an S Corp is it's a different tax entity. And so if you're in most state laws, so the tax law always overlaps some with state law, and so that can be, obviously I have limitations, and I don't know the state laws in every state. But you always have to like check the state law and check the tax law, even though the tax law is a federal law, state law is state law, it's two different jurisdictions. But under state law, if you're formed as a corporation, typically you have to have certain types of ownership structures. You have to have like certain numbers of board meetings. You have to have certain members of the board, versus an LLC has less formalistic requirements. That's the term I was thinking of. So an S Corp has more, a corporation has more formalistic requirements. A limited liability company typically has less. So that's kind of the difference in how they operate. Now, if you want to be taxed as an S Corp, even though you're formed as an LLC, so you don't have to do all the formalistic, elements, you can be taxed as an S Corp, and then you will have to track your shares because you have to file that with the IRS.
Our friend, right?
I saw this funny like meme, and they were saying they're sitting at the IRS. It says the IRS, and he looks over at his wife. He says, "See, it says theirs."
Girl,
theirs.
Listen,
it's all theirs.
Yes, we've gone through it. God, save your receipts. I don't care what it is. Listen, save it. That's all I can say. Save your receipts. Just stack them. Just stack them. And I,
Well, actually, but Courtney, that's a really important point. That's so important, is that save everything, get QuickBooks or any kind of bookkeeping software, stay on top of it. And then even like when you're going out to business dinner, keep a calendar. You have to keep a calendar of everything that you do, because if you are audited, the IRS expects you to have an insane amount of documentation for everything you do. So it's very important you do save all the receipts, keep a calendar of anytime you're doing a business meal, who are you eating with, you know, keep it a record of it. Use QuickBooks or some other kind of bookkeeping software. And then also something that's really helpful, even if you're not like, even if you're not even formed as a business yet, but you're doing like a, you know, a side hustle or doing a business on the side, have a separate bank account for that. And that'll make it much easier. And it doesn't have to be an entity name, but you just need to know that that's a separate bank account for what you're doing. And that way you can kind of track your expenses and income. Because also you don't want the IRS to come back and say you're commingling your money, you know, so it's always good to have separate accounts.
Yeah, listen, yeah, they know I'm transparent. Yes, me and Michelle has went through an audit before, and it's not a pretty sight. I'm like, Michelle, listen.
It's not pretty for anyone. It's not pretty for anyone.
It's not. She's like, I know she tried to do her job. I'm like, listen, I ain't got nothing else to show.
Right. Don't make it up though. Don't make it up.
No, that's why I said save those receipts. Save them receipts. Jeez. We're gonna bring a couple of people in to get a couple of questions answered. What is it? I typed it already. Okay, I'll let you go, Miss Sullivan. Could bring in. Let me know who you want to bring in. Any day, Miss Sullivan. Well, how's the kids?
Amazing. Thank you.
That's good. Okay, I think we got her in. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to unmute her. Who is it? Kimberly?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Courtney.
Kimberly.
I lost you guys for a minute. Hello.
How
are you?
Good. So, Courtney, you asked me to unmute, so you must have seen my question.
I did. You want to go ahead and repeat? I don't know if Michelle got a chance.
Sure.
I've seen a few run by, but
So I asked, what business assets should I put in a trust, and if I should have separate personal and business trusts? That was part of my question.
Okay, so what I would do is I would keep your business. I mean, do you have a business already in an entity like an LLC?
I do. I have an LLC, and I wanted to know if my assets should be titled in personal or business. If so, if they should be put in a personal trust or a business trust for succession reasons.
Well, typically what you would do is if you have an LLC and the LLC is buying assets for business assets, it would be in the LLC's name, and that's just good for tracking purposes. And so there's not a question of whether it's a personal purchase or business purchase.
Okay.
And then if you are wanting to put if you wanted to have the trust, have the business plan for succession, you can put your LLC interests into the trust. So then all the assets will go with it, because it'll go up. And so the interesting question about should you have a personal one and should you have a separate business one? It's not really necessary, probably not necessary, because the trust will just, everything that's in the trust, it'll just outline how it should be disposed of and who's going to get ownership of it. And, you'll have a trustee and they'll be in charge of that. But the issue is, the issue with if you're LLC, if you have a business, and I know that y'all are having a business lawyer come on next, so she might cover this too. And it's going to be great when she says the exact opposite thing of me. So I really hope that doesn't happen, but we'll see. You'll learn that all lawyers are different, but typically if you own a business, what you want to do is have some sort of succession plan. So you might not even necessarily have to put it in the trust. You might have like a buy-sell agreement or something that will go into effect that if you die, then the other someone else is entitled to buy your shares of the business, or like a redemption agreement that someone else, whoever you have designated, is entitled to redeem your interest. And so it might not necessarily have to go through the trust. It can succeed. You can have a separate succession plan for the business.
Gotcha.
It just depends on, like, if you have a business with a partner and then you want to make sure that you control who takes over your interest, or if it's your own.
Okay.
And then another thing that we tell a lot of people to do is, you know, you're going to want to have, if you have like a buy-sell agreement or a redemption agreement, you're going to want to have some way for there to be liquidity to buy those interests. So a lot of people will have like a life insurance policy or a life insurance trust that's tied to that redemption agreement. So those life insurance proceeds can then be.
Got one.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people overlook life insurance as an estate planning tool.
Yes.
Super important. Yep.
Yes, you're exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, girl, for coming by.
Okay.
Cool. Miss Sullivan, what you got? Jennifer. Okay, gonna switch her out. Miss Jennifer.
Hello, thank you, Courtney.
Hey, how are you?
Hello, I am good. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm sorry I'm out eating with my family, but
it's all right.
Had to get on this. But
get it in.
My question is, my 7-year-old daughter has a business that she's just starting this year, and I'm in the process of doing I'm done with the operating agreement, but I'm on there as a single member.
Right.
Do I include her anywhere on there? I know she's underage, but as of now, it's just my information.
I think that potentially opens you up to like challenges down the road. You know, is she going to have an income from the business? Is she going to have to file a tax return? You know, kids have to start filing tax returns at a certain level. You know, I mean, obviously, I think there's different, you know, you could do that, but I think that could create potential challenges for you. I don't know, Courtney, if you have any thoughts on that, but I would think it'd be best for you to keep it in your name.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, only because I don't like any kind of challenges. I don't like what I can't do. She underage. Like, I don't like any of that. Like she said, from a trust perspective, I'm getting her, everything is in order for her, all of that good stuff. But in regards to this, you don't want to create any challenges that's going to prevent you from making moves because of that. You know what I mean? For contracts that need to be signed, for things that need to be signed off. And it's like, oh, okay, well, she can't sign this until she turns 21.
Right.
So you really don't want to do that. At the end of the day, it's about building a legacy for her to have, and you can do that, but you also don't have to put these barriers up just because.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for
welcome.
answering my question.
Of course.
Of course. And enjoy your dinner.
Right.
Thank you.
Jealous.
Hello.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Courtney?
Very good. Thank you.
Good. So I have a question about paying my daughter. I wanted to hire her to help with the business. And from what I understand, I can pay her up to $12,800 per year. But I'm getting conflicting information. So my question is kind of a double question. How old, what is the youngest age that she's able to do that? And then at what age will she need to file taxes? Or is there a way to protect that money by maybe putting it, not paying her directly, but putting it like in a Roth or IRA or something like that? I don't know if you have any insight or recommendations.
Okay, so that's a great question. And, you know, like I said at the beginning, I can't give like specific tax advice because I don't know what's the up-to-date, you know, tax law, because they change kind of the rates every year. I think you're correct that there you can, it's called a kiddie tax. And what happens is that kids get taxed at a much lower income level. And that's because folks in, smart tax planners in the old day used to just pay a bunch of money to all their kids to reduce their tax liability and shift it. And so that they were paying less taxes. And so the IRS got wise to that. And so they put the kiddie tax in place, and that applies to any child, that has the income over that threshold. And I think you're right, it's somewhere around $12,000, but you can hire her. I don't think that there's an age limit for tax purposes. I don't know if there's any state law limitations on, whether someone can be a paid employee, a child can be a paid employee. But all I can say is that if you do that, then you definitely need to, she definitely needs to do the work and just have some sort of documentation of what her role is, and that what she's getting paid is like consistent for, that's really what the concern is that they kind of try and recharacterize it, that you're trying to, they try and claw that money that you paid her back into you. And so they would say, well, she didn't really do the work, so you don't get a deduction, because the reason you do that is for your business to get a deduction, right, as a wage expense. So if they try to claw that money in and say you don't get a deduction, so now you have to pay tax on that. So you would just have to document, like that, like I said at the beginning, document, make sure that what she's getting paid is not in excess of, what other people would get paid for comparable jobs, which it probably won't be if it's 12,000, but those would be the important factors to consider in doing that. And then as far as like putting money aside, for her, you can put it in a 529 is what what they use for education, that you can put money into a 529 for education. That money is you get a tax deduction for the money that you put into a 529. You can also just set it aside in a separate bank account or trust, because the 529s are run by the state. And actually we have 529s for our kids and they're horrible. We haven't made any money on them. So, I got the, no, I don't think you get the tax deduction on the front end. I think you don't have to pay taxes on the back end. I'm not 100% sure, but in any event, it was not a good investment for us because it hasn't done well. But you can put, you can just put it in a separate bank account or in a trust. But again, when you start the trust, you're going to have those tax requirements that you have to report on its income.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Courtney, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Isn't this such a fun topic?
Yes.
God, Lee, I swear this is like the worst part of what I do. I'm telling you. I'm like, Michelle.
It is the worst part. It is the worst part.
But it's so important. And like I said, it's really the planning part that's important. It's really getting with somebody who have a good understanding of, like she said, it's really understanding you and your situation, and then what those possibilities can definitely be. So like she said, very important. Someone asked about being in different states. I know you said you guys are merging. Will people be able to work with your company in different states?
We'll have, I think Denton's has offices in DC, New York, I think Florida, and I know Kansas City, and out west. I can pull up the map. I should have looked at the map before.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's true. We still working together, and listen, I'm elsewhere. So again,
we'll have people all over.
Yeah, so they do the planning. So again, you're going to have a person who's going to actually file the taxes. And then you're going to have like your attorneys who's going to actually help you to plan for, for what's coming. So
yeah, and really the attorneys can help you with like large transactions. I mean, that's what you're really going to use your attorney for, large transactions, the estate planning, like you said, kind of the business formation. You can talk through with your attorney, what's the best entity for me, and that's a good use of an attorney's time if you have, and if you have any kind of complex, like I said, complex transactions. As far as like your, annual tax planning, you'll probably work more closely with your CPA to, or if you have like a CFO or someone that can kind of keep track of where are we on our income, where are we on our expenses, do we need to move up any, any deductions, like do we need to move up any purchases, is there anything we can buy this year that we get like 100% bonus depreciation, or do we need to put off some expenses? You know, do we need to pay some things next year because we're expecting a large amount of income next year? So there's some of those things that kind of like the ebb and flow of the annual tax year that your CPA should be able to help you stay on top of.
You know what the sad part is though, what we actually experience, every CPA unfortunately doesn't understand every industry. And I think that was one of our major pain points. Like again, being in a person that's in retail, and we get hit with so many like deductions, they hit with so many things. They didn't know which bucket to put what in,
right.
What was considered a hit, what was considered like, so, it's crazy. That's probably a whole nother Zoom call conversation on talking about, CPAs, but if you don't understand the industry, you only can give so much. And there were so many things for us that was like all over the place. So when going through the acquisition, we had to go back and like fix some things and move this from here, and that's considered this, but everybody don't know.
Right.
Unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you need someone who knows the industry, and also you can have like an internal controller. So if you're just working with an outside CPA, that's a great point, Courtney. If you're just working with the outside CPA, they might not give you that level of care or assistance because they're doing 1,000 tax returns a year. And so they're not really having the time to think about it. So, you might want to work, if you can bring someone internal to do a lot of that work. The only downside of the internal person, right, is the upside is that they know your industry, they know your business, and they're on top of it, right? Like they're going to come to you and tell you when you have something going on. The downside is that they don't have like a huge network, but then again, that's what you can call your lawyer if you have a question. I get calls all the time from, in-house controllers that they have a tax question that's just beyond their scope. But there's some CPA firms out there, some of the CPAs I work with in town here that do like outside CFO work. So that's really, where they're kind of not just preparing your tax return, but also helping you with your business planning. And then there's something else that y'all should, I'm sure, I don't know if everyone understands this or not, but something I discovered, kind of like, when you have lawyers, there's all different kinds, right? So I'm a tax lawyer, and you have a criminal lawyer, and a trademark lawyer, and a corporate lawyer. Well, same with CPAs. So you might have like a financial accounting CPA who can do a balance sheet, but then that's different from a tax CPA, and that's different from the government contracting CPA. So you kind of need someone that has a little bit of the financial and the tax background to help you, like you said, kind of put all the income and expense items in the proper categories and treat them properly for tax purposes.
Right. And that's what I was saying before, even with the last attorney, and I was like, starting a business, going from a home-based business to a business that grew like, pretty fast. There are just some things that's just basic. Like there's some basic things, and that's the things I really want to achieve today. What are those basic things? And like I said, just even using QuickBooks, let's say, we could have been all over the place with some things, but at the end of the day, we were still using. And then at the end of the day, QuickBooks is only as good as you use. What I mean? If you're not using it, then it's really useless. But there are some basic things, and some people are like, oh, well, when would I start using that? Like in a business, I'm like day one. Like if you can start, and it's pretty economical. It's like it's not even like what we were talking about on the last one, the trademark and those fees, but used to start using QuickBooks day one, because at the end of the day, if something needs to be fixed, at least they can see it. No. If you need to go back and adjust something or change something and do whatever it is, you really should run that stuff through QuickBooks. I'm telling you, even if you feel like I don't understand it 100%, just to be able to utilize it when you do get people to come in, like I said, because any company that goes from a bootstrap company, you're going to have like some issues from a financial perspective. That's always the weakest part of an entrepreneurial business. Is going to be the finances. That's the part that we just trying to figure some things out, right? But on basic, at a minimum, you want to at least be able to, a couple of things I say is, one, get QuickBooks. Two, use ADP to do like whoever you want to use to do your payroll. Don't do that. Don't do it yourself. Like when it comes to like paying taxes, that's one of the tax areas that you just don't want to play with.
Yeah, and then and like I meant to mention, QuickBooks is not the only bookkeeping software. There's
Right.
other ones out there, and as you were saying before, like for
Mhm.
specialized industries,
Something.
there are certain softwares that are better, and so you just kind of Google it and see what's out there in your industry. And the other thing I was going to say to your point about starting it on day one, and what I see a lot of people come to me with problems is because they're trying to do it all. They're trying to do it all, and the financial stuff falls by the wayside. And really, it's so if you can't do the financial, if it's too much, you don't have to hire a CPA or an accountant. You can just hire a bookkeeper whose job
Yeah.
is to put all the information in and keep track of it. And that's not as big of an expense, but I have people come in, they're like, well, I'm just trying to save I was trying to save as much money as I can. Well, now you've lost a bunch of money because now you're having penalties assessed against you because you didn't keep your books right and you didn't make these payments on time. And so I would say definitely if you feel overwhelmed and can't keep track of the finances, it's worth it to hire just a bookkeeper. It doesn't have to be a CPA, just someone that can maintain the books.
Yep, same. We're definitely gonna say that. That is true. Okay, Miss Sullivan, we could take a couple more.
All right, Angie D.
Angie D.
Yes. Hi, thank you for
Hey,
having me. Michelle and Courtney, thank you for your time. I'm in the middle of trying to get my business off the ground, and I kind of touching on what you guys were just speaking of. I want to be able to keep track of certain things in order to be ready for when it's time to do my taxes and make it easier for my accountant. So what are some, I guess, things that you look for a client to already have in order, and also kind of some no-nos that you don't want to see that makes your job harder?
Well, the most important thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that if the bare minimum is to start a separate bank account for your business and then do all your income and expenses out of that separate bank account. And I'll tell you, my husband decided he wanted to do a side hustle and created an LLC. And I said, why would you do that? Now you just have to because LLCs, not only do you have to pay, file tax returns, but there's also state reporting requirements. You have to file annual reports. You have to file business, in Alabama, at least you have to file business privilege tax. So people always think, oh, the first thing I need to do is create an entity. No, the first thing you need to do is create a separate bank account, because you need to be able to track your income and expenses separately. And the other reason for that, like you said, the major no-no is that if it's intermingled with with your personal expenses, then it becomes a lot harder to prove if there's a question, like, was this a business expense? Was it a personal expense? So the first thing I would do is start a separate bank account. I would talk through with your either accountant or lawyer and talk about what kind of expenses do you plan to incur? Are they tax deductible, or maybe some of them have to be capitalized, or maybe there's some expenses that you didn't realize that you could have a tax benefit from. And so I would meet with someone early on to kind of go over what kind of expenses you're going to get, what kind of income you're going to have. And then you need to make sure that you're paying all your sales tax. If you have to pay a sales tax, confirm what that is, because that could be a problem. Find all of your state tax requirements. There's the state filing requirements are different from the federal filing requirements. And like I said, just like the reporting, the annual report fee and the LLC registration fee, there's certain fees that come with having a corporation. You don't necessarily have to pay if you're sole proprietor, but I would make sure that you know what all of those are and that you're on top of them. And once you start, you have to stay on top of them.
And I like what you said about creating a separate account. That makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times there's things that you're doing, like people going to events, they're activated, there's different things that they're doing, like small things that they're purchasing for their, for their business. And again, you're not totally foreign, because like I said, we had to go back and come through, like, how many years, Michelle? Right. So I had my sister, I'm like, girl, listen, I'm just gonna lay on the couch and you ask me yes, no, business, no, like, it's a headache.
I remember, I can't even imagine what that was like.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. I mean, like, it was terrible. So like you said, at least if you separate that, even if you don't officially have the business, but these are all the expenses, because there were so many things when I first started the Main Choice. Like I was getting like caps and bottles and labels and all of that before it was like really formed. And to retro go back over things like the obvious, who we can tell that, okay, this is a business expense. Right. There were a lot of business expenses that I had to take an L for because I just couldn't prove. I didn't have like the, you know what I mean? Didn't have like the stuff to actually separate, or I didn't have the receipts. But that's a really good point. At least have that thing separated. So you're like, okay, here it is. Here's the receipt. This is for my business. So that makes
and especially, and the receipt thing is important too, because even when you have a separate bank account, especially like if you're under audit, you know, the IRS will see, like, if you say I put everything in my separate bank account, so this is all, you know, my personal expense, I mean, all my business expense, because they're all my business account. But if they just see like Walmart, you know, they'll say, well, how do I know you weren't, you know, shopping? I mean, I'm sorry, that's just how they are, you know?
No, I got hit with all kind of Walmarts. I was like, Michelle, I said I went and bought a tablecloth at Walmart for this activation.
Right.
She's like, well, prove it. I'm like, you know.
That wasn't me. It was it was the agents. But
you just delivering the message.
I was delivering the message. But you also would like, that's the other important thing about the calendar, because that helps a lot too. Yeah. You know, you're going to have travel expenses and meal expenses, and you know, if you're going to be taking vehicle deductions, you know, you can either claim mileage or you can keep track of your vehicle expenses, but you have to calendar all that. And so just maintain your calendar. Thankfully now, you know, so much of what we do is on Outlook, at least for me, or whatever calendar you use, Google Calendar, and you have all your meetings in there. And then at the end of the year, when you're going to meet with your accountant, I would at least print them out and just have like a printout of your work calendar. So if there's ever a question about something, you know, you have a record of it, and then you can go back and you can say, well, I had this expense on this date. This is what I was doing.
That's true. Somebody said, do I know what led to my audit? Sort of. I don't even know if I should say that, Michelle. I don't know. Should I say that or not? I'll keep it rolling.
I think that's up to you, Courtney. I don't think you wanted to get into that. Okay. Let's just say that the IRS will come after anyone and everyone.
A bad CPA. Let me just say that. A bad CPA. I think that addresses it. A bad CPA.
But you know, I'll tell you what, some of the things that will, and I'm not talking to Courtney's situation, but generally things that will flag an audit too is like if you have a really high business expense that like really exceeds your income, if you have just unusually large, just an unusually large number of something that, you know, charitable donations sometimes will flag an audit, and any major loss will typically flag an audit. And then the other way that a lot of people get picked up for audit is if they haven't reported something. So if you got like a 1099 that you didn't report or something else, then that'll pick it up for audit.
Yeah. And that wasn't mine, but yeah. Okay, let's see what you got. So you got to share bad CPA bookkeeper. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's those growing pains. That's all I can say. You know, people, I mean, you could be good. You can have a CPA, but and ask them, have you ever had a history of working with companies like this? Like, because again, just because you work with one company, have you ever worked with a company that's in retail? Because that is a whole nother set of deductions and a whole nother set of issues. And if you don't thoroughly understand that, then, you know, you're really screwed, like we were. Okay. Crystal. You said give a hand? Crystal Bling, sorry. Miss Bling, come on.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Get it right, Courtney. No,
I got it. I see another Crystal in there. Okay, all right.
I saw a few crystals in here. Hey, CCC family. Hey. You guys are like my family. I love going to the lives. Okay, so I had a question today about nonprofits and setting up a nonprofit and making sure that everything is in order, because I've heard that it's more complex than just our corporations, LLCs, and sole proprietorships. So how do I even get started with that? Because I want to deal with the youth. So I really want to make sure that my ducks are in a row.
So setting up a nonprofit is a lot of work. You have to file, let's see, and I know that there's a form that you have to submit to the IRS in order to get qualified as a nonprofit. And I can't remember the form number right now, but you have to, it's like pages and pages and pages of information that you have to provide. And then every year you have to file a form 990 to kind of report, you know, the donations you received and the, you know, what you did with the money. And those are typically like publicly available forms. There's also certain requirements that you have as a nonprofit, like you can't convey a public benefit. So there's a whole host of rules. So I would definitely get with, and like I said, even like within tax law, there's like tax nonprofit lawyers, and we have one in our office that can really walk through all those items. But there's certain rules, like you can't, like a nonprofit cannot benefit one person, you know, more than other people, because there was problems with, like, you know, people creating nonprofits and then paying all their family members. And actually I know someone that does that, and I hope they don't get audited, but it's just like, you know, you can't be taking in all the money to pay someone else. So then the other option too is to do a private foundation, and that's like more streamlined, and that's a little bit easier to do, that you can create a private foundation, and then whatever money you put in there, you know, you get a charitable deduction. But the only downside is that you have to direct that to other 501c3s. You can't, what's the word I was gonna say? You can't like just hand it out. Like if you had a charity.
That's why I didn't like that one, because I'm like, I want to do what I want to do with it. I don't want to just, you know.
Right. If you just want to hand it to, like, you know, me or, you know, whoever, whatever person you want to just hand that money to, you have to have the nonprofit to do that. And there's just ongoing requirements for that. So it's a little more complicated, but the private foundation is easier. But right, that's the major downside, is that you can only direct the money to other nonprofits.
Right. And that's kind of why I created the fund, because that's kind of what I was trying to do. They were like, okay, well, which other one you giving it to? I'm like, none. I want to do what I want to do with it.
Give it to whoever you want.
Right. I'm like, well, that's not for me. But I do have one. I do have that too. But my main thing, I wanted to be able to give and do what I want to do with it. And like she said, that's not the case.
Okay. So Courtney, with your nonprofit, do you have a specific lawyer, attorney, or someone who?
Well, yeah, I have a fund, so I don't have a non. So I created a nonprofit because I want to do something with it. I haven't, so yeah, I had to do more of a fund because I have more flexibility in how I wanted to operate that. So as far as a nonprofit, the only thing that I've done with it was created. I haven't done anything, so I probably couldn't shed any light on that one.
Okay, that's helpful though. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, and then, you know, a lot of communities, I'll tell you, like we have we're in Huntsville, you know, we have like a small business center to help small businesses. It's called the Catalyst. And there should be some kind of like the Chamber of Commerce would be a good place to start. And they can probably direct you to someone that can help you, you know, start a nonprofit. It doesn't necessarily have to be an attorney, but if you were to go to like the Chamber of Commerce, I bet they would be able to direct you to like a foundation or, you know, some sort of group nonprofit that basically helps nonprofits.
Right. Okay. And I have a resource for that too. You may not remember, I did a live with a young lady who actually handles all of that too. So I can definitely probably post that information as well too. If you hit me up in my inbox, I can give you that information as well too.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
She's like a specialty. She's like a matter of fact, it's called 501c3 approved, something like that on Instagram. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember when I posted that.
I should.
Yeah. So yeah, that's her space. So 501c approved. I think the 3 may be in there, but you will see when you actually type it in, it's like orange and blue. But yeah, that's her specialty. So definitely check in. With that, I'm going to take probably one more.
Good luck, Crystal. I hope you help a lot of people.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll take one. Stevenson.
Yes. My question would be, if I purchased some educational stuff for my business, like to learn more, on how to run my business or more information about certain things concerning my business, even like for taxes. Is that something that I can like write off on my taxes as well?
So there's there's like a startup cost deduction that you can have. You can deduct up to, I think it's $5,000 of startup costs. And then there are certain situations where you can deduct educational expenses. I'm not 100% sure what they are under the current code, but I think there has to be some sort of income that you have to generate within a certain amount of time. I'm not sure, but I can't recall what the current rules are, but there are some allowances for that. So I would definitely look into that, but I know that there's a startup cost deduction. I think it's $5,000 for just expenses like that you would spend in starting up your company. And the thing too, is you have to look at whether or not, depending on your corporate form, whether or not you can have like an operating loss carry forward, because if you think about it, most people in the first year of business might not make any money. So you might have all these expenses and want to deduct them, but you're not going to have anything to deduct them against. And so depending on your corporate form, and so you'll have to look into like which form are you going to operate under, or if you're a sole proprietor, the rules change as far as what's allowed and what's not allowed and whether or not you can carry it forward.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So
not
I got
a complete answer, but close.
I got a bunch of flat suits that I only wear for work. You know what I'm saying? Like flat shoes and suits. Can I deduct all of that? Right. Because I'm technically going to work in it. So can I deduct, you know what I'm saying? Like all these flat suits and like purses and shoes and stuff, because I don't wear them anywhere but to the office. So can I deduct that, Michelle?
I know, Courtney. I think someone lost that case in tax court years ago. I have heard so many people ask that. It's interesting. There is some though, like there is like if you have to buy a uniform, you might be, and actually
my boss tell me I have to dress like that. So technically
you can. And actually I think that, so it used to be like unreimbursed employee expenses, right? That used to be something you could claim on your tax return. But I think that under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 or 2018, I think they got rid of that. I'm not 100% sure. So the question is, could you do it on your sole proprietor? I'm sure the tax court has said no. I'm sure the IRS has said no. So,
I think creative, Michelle.
I know we all want to do that, right? Can you have your business buy it for you? I mean,
it's the uniform. Like they want me to be fly. Like, so I won't have a job if I didn't. So what do I do?
I mean, I would have to look into that. I could maybe you could have the business buy it, as a marketing expense, or you could just get the companies to donate it to you and they can deduct the cost as a marketing expense, and then you don't have to pay for it.
Well, then that's a donation though. Like I'm not spending no money there. The company's not spending no money. I'm just pulling her leg, y'all. I'm just pulling her leg.
I know there's a lot of people that have tried that, Courtney. I think that they put the kibosh on it because it's one of those things in tax law where you think you should be allowed to, right? Like you feel like you should be allowed to because you wouldn't be spending that money otherwise. And it's something that like the courts are like, no, it's going to be abused because everyone's just going to start deducting all their clothing expenses. And so,
but I was able to do with the car though, the automobile.
You
it sure did, Michelle. Sure did. That's the company's car. But no. But no, this is great. Thank you so much. Let me just say, like you said, on a Sunday evening, or you got a full family. So thank you so much for hopping on this Zoom call with us. We thoroughly appreciate your knowledge. Like I said, I don't care if only one person show up. I'm here to be a resource to people. And I really appreciate you, you joining us tonight. This was amazing. So if you could just recap again, the name of your company. I know you said you guys are going to be changing so they can have that information. Okay. So I know we would love to stay in contact.
Okay, yeah, I'll put my information in the chat, my email address, and then I'll put the name of the firm that we're changing to. And just kind of the recap, you know, of course, like the most important thing is, you know, record keeping and tracking everything, because before you even get to take deductions, you have to have your records of it, right? And then as you're moving through your business, you know, and I've mentioned it some, and I think it'll probably come up next, you know, there's different corporate forms. They each have their own tax advantages and disadvantages. So really, you know, meet early with someone and, you know, what is your goal, and that they can help you decide, you know, what is the right corporate form that's going to maximize your, you know, your tax benefits. And then just for the estate planning side or asset protection side, you know, really, like I said, estate planning more these days is really more about asset protection than it is about planning for the estate tax, because so few people are actually subject to the estate tax. But asset protection and asset disposition is really important, and it just, you know, helps preserve, you know, the legacy, and helps from, you know, having your kids fighting down the road or challenge family members fighting, which is inevitable, especially if there's a large estate. So, you know, do that early and often. And like I said, revisit those documents every few years, because you want to make sure that it's so in line with your goals and with the tax law. And thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
We loved it. We love it. Like I said, we all want to stay in contact. So make sure you guys link in with her. I'm telling y'all, I've been telling y'all, LinkedIn is the social media for business people. Link in with these people. So definitely, thank you so much. So definitely put your information there. We want to stay in contact.
I also have a TikTok, like a tax lawyer TikTok account. I just want to plug it.
Listen, I wasn't gonna say she out here TikToking y'all, like legit.
I'm trying to get, but there's like, it's TikTok.tax lawyer. So
she not playing no games out here, like legit. So make sure y'all follow. It is so funny. It is so she gonna keep it coming. She gonna keep it informative, and it's gonna be funny. So I love to surround myself by with amazing people. And like she said, we go back years. This is like the beginning of the Main Choice, and you know, her walking in, I'm like, yes.
That part.
But like I said, great. Just great. So make sure, like I said, y'all, you know, just expand your, you know, your networking. Make sure everybody you see tonight that you're following it on LinkedIn, because you never know when you're gonna need these people. Yeah. Just amazing and true blessings in my life. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All righty. What we looking like? We got about 5 minutes for the next. Okay, so this next one, this is about to be comical. So that's all I gotta say. This is about to be comical. It's gonna be a little bit a little unorthodox. Well, I'm laughing is because you were here. Let me act professional. Hold on, let me get myself together. I'm gonna treat you like I treat the other attorneys. Let me get myself together real quick. Hold on. Hi, Attorney Drake. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You know, we're in for a treat, you guys. I gotta get y'all behind the scene. First of all, we go back. We go way back. I don't even know how far back we go. So me and Robin, actually, Drake, Mrs. Drake. Let me get myself together.
Attorney.
Yes. We were friends before she went to law school. At the time, let me get 1 second. Miss Sullivan, you good?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So at the time, I had a photography studio, right? And this lovely lady walked in my photography studio, and she had a magazine. She said, you know, I would love to feature you in the magazine. She was just explaining and all of that good stuff. So we've been friends ever since. During that time, we done did some things. We've come a long way. Let me just say that. So I definitely consider her a friend. a friend first, and then the attorney part came a little bit later. So those are some interesting stories. So we're going to get into all of that tonight. And so you asked me like, okay, so exactly what do she do for you? What? Everything. So I'm calling Robin, Mrs. Drake, for everything. Listen, I will call her to check another attorney. I think you guys heard me say that on live before. I'm gonna say, listen, this attorney just told me XYZ. Is that right? You know, so I would double check just to be on the safe side. But I don't sign any agreements without it going through her. If there's any nonsense, if I'm hit with any type of, lawsuit, somebody trying to get some money from me, like anything, when I say you have to have a good lawyer on call, and I say on call because I don't got time for no office hours, you know what I'm saying? So I need what I need. I need some answers. Sometimes that may be come at different times of the night. No, so it's very not that often, but again, want to introduce you to Mrs. Drake. Like I said, been friends for a long time. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Mrs. Drake, and you can explain to them what you do, the areas of law that you practice.
So Courtney is correct. We met years ago. So I walk into this photography studio in the mall, and the part she's leaving out is I asked to speak with the manager. And she said, "Oh, that's me." And it threw me back. She was so young and so poised and so professional. And she was a young African-American business owner. And not only that, she took fantastic photographs, okay? So I started to get up and run and pull the photograph off my wall. Listen, she was, everything she does well. It didn't just start here, okay, guys? So anyway, she's right. We became friends. While I was in law school, we were friends. Did several things together. Kids in the same school, just grew as friends. And then once I became an attorney, she hired me. Didn't know anything about law, but she just trusted I figure it out, which is true. I did. So started practicing law 2012, and Courtney was my first client. She was very loyal. So if anyone ever has Courtney as a client, know that if you do well by Courtney, she'll always come back.
That's it.
So I was in private practice, didn't know what law I was going to practice, but Courtney was like, "Hey, I need you to look at this contract." So Courtney kind of pushed me into contract law. And so anything general business, I handled it for Courtney. Courtney would be like, "Hey, I need you to go meet with the chief of the fire department." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Girl, I was all about that. Listen, fire department people, let me just tell y'all this story real quick so she can understand. This is the nonsense we have to go through. So y'all, you can get behind the scenes on this particular call. So I'm in Huntsville, I'm in Alabama, I'm under the radar. Let's just say I'm under the radar. Once you start pulling numbers and have to post your numbers and stuff like that, now you become on the radar. So you got this Black girl, selling products, and, we sold like some millions that year. Probably after that year, we did like 2.5 million. And you're like, who is this? Who did 2.5 million here? Like, we don't know about, right? So the fire marshal walks in and he's trying to shut stuff down. Like, you can't do this. They just really antagonizing me because I'm like, dude, I just released those numbers. I had no problems since I've been here. So she's a friend. So I'm calling, we talking to one another. I'm like, the fire marshal said, when I say I don't care what it is, I'm calling her. This is what's going on. Fire marshal trying to shut me down. I'm legit just trying to make a little product for my consumer. And so keep going.
So I said, "Okay, Courtney." I said, "So, how much did you put on your documentation?" I said, "Was it over 100,000?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, 150,000? It was more than that, Robin. And I said, "Well, how much did you put down?" She was like, "Well, it was over 500,000. I was like, "Why did you put that?" Now listen, because that's the right thing to do. See how her tax attorney was just on? As her friend. I'm like, "Don't you realize you're in Madison, Alabama? And I'm trying to school her on the South." And like, "What are you doing?"
I'm from Detroit. Like, look. We supposed to be boiling. Wait, that's a good thing.
So I said, okay, well, what do they want? She was like, they want a meeting. And I was like, okay. So we were talking. She said, well, I'm not going. I said, wait, you're not going to the meeting? Now, once again, I just started practicing law. Let's keep talking about this. Robin, I'm not going to the meeting. I said, so what are we going to do? You going to go. I said, well, how are we going to talk to you? Just call me. This is a true story, guys. She did not show up.
I said, I'm sending my attorney. She
sent her attorney, like was already at the boss mode at this point, right? I'm sending my attorney. So I walk in, here's another young Black person, and everybody in the room does not look like me, okay? And they had already checked out Courtney's establishment. So they really trying to figure out what's going on.
Right, right.
But after I explained like, hey, what's going on? And there's nothing in here that's flammable and things of that nature. It was almost a sigh of relief because they didn't know, first of all, this business existed in Madison, which is the city's problem, right? Because they should have known who she was and what she was doing. Exactly. But by the time they looked up, she had left to move to Huntsville, the neighboring city, because the fire chief crossed the boundary that he should not have crossed. And I thought, now what are they going to do now? Because they lost revenues, but that did happen. So she took me in there. And it turned out okay. They didn't shut you down.
They didn't shut me down. I said, I'm not going. Now, I'm going to tell a little bit of this. I can go into detail on this. I'm going to tell a little bit of this so they can understand. So, like I told y'all before, I had businesses before, right? So you know how you have businesses, you close it, you want to do something else. You go on to the next thing. So that happened. I did. I had other businesses I closed. I'm like, okay, I'm on to the next thing, right? So what had happened was, you know, I'm transparent. I got to tell y'all the ups and the downs so y'all can feel me. So I owed some taxes. I owed like some city taxes, like the city taxes, right? And I don't know, it was like years. I think what it was, I was working with a guy who actually passed away. He was working on my case. So when he passed away, shoot, in my brain, like I forgot all about it, to be quite honest. So then I think I got hit with, I think it was like a warrant or something like that. I said, oh, snap. I said, girl, I got a warrant. They told me to come on. They told me to come down to the thing. She said, I said, well, I done paid. I said, there may be like a balance or something that I owe. They told me to come down here and pay it. I said, listen, you know good well I'm not coming down here to pay it. I'm like, no, I'm going to give you a blank check. I want you to go down there and you pay these people because the lady, when I say she wanted my blood, I called down there. The lady, she wasn't even checking for the money. She really wasn't. She was like, we just want you to come in. I said, well, I'm trying to get this thing paid. Can I pay it over the phone? She's like, no, we want you to come in so we can discuss it. But you know me, I'm from Detroit. So ain't no coming in and discuss nothing if I'm trying to tell you I'm trying to pay this thing off. So I called Rob. I said, listen, I'm not going down there. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the lady that I'm coming. I'm going to give you, they try to have me like this, y'all. I said, I'm going to give you a blank check and I want you to go down there and pay whatever it is, right? So what happened when you walked in our office?
I forgot about that. You did send me down to the county tax assessor.
I did.
And she was out for blood.
She was out for blood. It was like under $1,000.
Listen, it was not a lot of money, but she wasn't used to people bringing in their attorneys to handle the situation. I was like, well, I have a check.
She was pissed. She was like, where is Courtney? You was like, she's like, where is Courtney?
She called you.
She's like, where is Courtney? And you was like, it doesn't matter.
But legally, let me tell you this, guys, she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. If the person comes to pay, you have to withdraw the warrant. Now, once again, I'm a new attorney, so I didn't know all this, right? What I did know is either you take this check or the county don't get any money. So she was forced to take the check.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand at the time, once she got the check, she couldn't serve the warrant.
Right. But she was mad. Oh, she was mad. She was hot. Remember you said it was a guy there, you said you thought he was an unmarked police ready to take me to jail.
They wanted to serve you with, what I found out later on was that it's like a summons for you to appear in court.
Yeah.
So they would have served you with the summons and you would have had to appear, but it's a misdemeanor for you not to pay county taxes.
Right.
But I mean, who knows that?
I'm gonna tell you the funny thing. I don't even know if I told you. I think I did probably tell. I think before then, because you like, listen, you tell a black person, listen, we got a warrant. I'm like, listen, get this thing paid by any means necessary. So now I'm moving quick. So I think it was something where I had to go down to like the sheriff's office or something, whatever that was. I had to go down there right? So I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm taking all my kids with me, just in case. You know what I'm saying? Do you remember that? I said, come on, kid, we going down here deep, just in case. We go in there, the sheriff come out, and she's like, well, you do know you got a warrant, right? I said, well, that's what this paperwork say. I said, listen, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Because I think I had called the lady down there already. And the lady, like, the sheriff, like, do you have the money to pay? I said, yes, I got the money to pay. She's like, listen, she's like, because I'm supposed to technically be locking you up.
But you had your kids.
She said, but since you got your kids here, I'm like this with the kids. I'm like, we are going. She's like, if you got the money, she said, ma'am, can you please just pay them? I'm like, listen, I done called this lady to try to pay her. I did. The lady did not want the money. What happened was she found out about the main choice, remember? And she was like, oh my God, like she blew up. She was like mad that I was currently having a company that just exploded. And I owed like this $900 or something. So she wanted to legit give me a record. That's what she wanted.
And listen, guys, I end up being a prosecutor later on, like a couple of years later, and actually had to run back in with this lady. Now I'm prosecuting people, and she remembered me.
What?
She remembered me. She was like, haven't we met? So let me tell you something, guys. Whenever somebody came in with a tax issue, I treated them as if, can you pay this? Because this is a waste of our time. Because of what I had interacted with previously prior to being a prosecutor, like you don't give people a misdemeanor over $600 and $700. Nobody was on the county $20,000 and $30,000, guys. Yeah. It was a couple of $100, like that they're not hurting for at this point. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was, but I forgot about the kids.
Yeah, girl, I went out there with all my kids. I said, listen, all y'all, come on. I had Lily on my hip. I'm like in there looking like, who did it and what for? She's like, ma'am, do you have the money? I said, yes, ma'am, I have the money. She said, please. She said, I don't even feel like doing all of this. She's like, I don't feel like writing this up. I don't feel like doing none of this. But anyway, so I say all this to say, do you need an attorney who you can call to get things done? Because when you're doing business, when I say I can tell you about the craziest stories, again, this don't even touch the surface of the craziness that we've dealt. And as you start to evolve, when people know you in business, people know all that, you're going to get so many people that come after you over nonsense, so many crazy things, so many lawsuits, so many whatever. I remember when I got my first lawsuit, somebody was like, oh my God, congratulations. You got your first lawsuit. Oh, you must be doing big business now. And I'm like, I'm over here stressing like, what? But it comes with the territory. And one thing I found out when it comes to the legal system, you may be like, you know what? That ain't nothing. Like, ain't nobody going, that's stupid. There's nothing stupid when it comes to law. Let me just say that, because I've been involved in some things. I'm like, oh, the judge gonna throw that out. That's a joke. Next thing I know, they passing this thing on. Oh, we about to go to. I'm like, what? Then you got to hire an attorney, and they go, oh, okay, we're gonna throw it out. But if you don't have representation, that's an automatic in the court. They're going to proceed. I don't care how stupid it is. I could tell you some crazy things, and you're like, oh, they're gonna throw that out. Come in there without an attorney. Come in there without an attorney. Hang on, let me see. Hold on, let me do my view. But no, like I said, at this point, I don't sign anything. Why am I not seeing? Hold on. Where did Robin go? Did I lose it?
I'm still here, but I need you to look at what I'm holding.
Goodness. Cheers.
And
ladies, where y'all cups at? Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. Get that shot, Jamia. There we go. Hold them up. Hold them. That's what I'm talking about. But yes, I'm telling you, you got to get your ducks in a row. So at this point, I don't sign anything. I always say my rule of thumb at this point, what? A paragraph, and that better be an easy paragraph for me to read, because if I can't read that thing and if I got a question, I'm like, send that thing over to Robin, let her read that, because I I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I've been through, again, going through the acquisition. Do you know how many attorneys I had to have going through the acquisition of, when I say, at least about 7 or 8 attorneys on that thing doing different things. And I will call her in to double check because, again, these are new people that I'm dealing with. Sometimes these people are friends. You have no idea. You got people going against one another and you think they on different sides and they friends. You're like, wait a minute, well, who got my best interest at heart? So you got to make sure you got somebody on your team who is on your team. Let me just say that, because plenty of times I'm like, they just said this, but I got to make sure this is right because something not right about that. But yeah, so yeah, we got some stories, y'all. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. And like I said, and the more you evolve from a business perspective, there's nothing that's considered crazy in regards to law. The craziest thing you could be hit, I'm telling you, I legit got my first paper served. And y'all heard me talk about this on live before. I've got papers served to me from another hair care brand because they said that I was doing something that they was told that they couldn't do anymore. So I said, you mean to tell me another hair care brand is spending money on me be how I'm operating? When I say y'all gonna get hit with crazy things that you think is crazy stuff. I said, well, shoot, I'm not spending a dime on another brand, let alone, so I thought it was crazy. But again, you'll be surprised. But I will take in I'm going to bring in a couple of questions really quick. That's how I wrote my boss. I'm pretty where I heard that. Oh yeah, I'm calling. Listen, we got some crazy stories. I'm straight. Listen, does this look right? Don't sign anything that you're not sure about. Anything. I'm telling you another thing that I started doing. Emails, recapping. I know it's a little bit different, but why it's on my brain. When you get off the phone with somebody, recap that thing in an email. Let me just say that. 2, if you ever have some heat that go down, and let's say you email them, right? And they're like, oh, call me. No. Don't let them call you. Put that stuff in that email first, and then we're going to have a conversation. Because I've been there, done that. I had a company, every time it took me, this was like our first year in business. It took me a minute. Every time it was some heat, I thought they were being considerate. Like, oh, they want to talk. Forget the email. I said, oh, they're so nice. They are so nice. They would call me every time some stuff hit the fan. We wanted to have to get rid of this company, and I had no paper trail. When I say I had none, because every time something hit the fan, they called me. And I was like, all this time, I'm thinking they being considerate. Meanwhile, they covering themselves. So again, I'm not answering the phone, put it in an email. So Robin will tell, I'm paranoid now. Everybody out to get me. But that's how
I remember that was like your first major deal. And I said, well, you said, no, we agreed to this. And I was like, okay. And you were going through your emails and you said,
girl, I ain't got none.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, you said, I don't have any. That's what you told me. I was like, oh, and I think we both figured out at that point what they've done. And so they were covering their tail. Right. So they would say one thing on the phone. And then when it came down to it, everything was different. You was like, I know that's not what they told me. So yeah, exactly. That was a learning experience.
Exactly. That was an experience. So now they've I think we had something the other day and my sister was like, oh, they want to hop on the call. You want to go on the call? I said, no. I said, put that in an email first, then let them explain what's going on. Then we'll hop on the telephone call. Now you're going to look like a butthole at this point, but I've been burned. So at this point, I treat everything as if it's somebody out to get you. When I say cover yourself, that little stomach, butterflies in your stomach, that little gift that God gives you, know that it's for a reason. If you don't think something is right, again, set any agreements, y'all dealing with formulas, you dealing with all that kind of stuff, make sure you have an attorney that's going to review your stuff. I'm telling you, it could be the simplest stuff. I'm like, Robert, I think this is pretty straightforward. She still got 10 things. I'm like, Lord Jesus. But at the end of the day, she's doing her job though. I can't complain, but I'll be wanting to get the thing over with. But in the back of my head, I'll be like, Courtney, don't sign it. I want to sign it so I can get it over with. When I say my leases for my buildings, from anytime somebody want to do something with Lily, any type of releases, just anything, I'm telling you. And if you get with a general attorney that you working with as general, then they're going to know, again, you're going to constantly be hitting stuff, sending them different things. And you just want to make sure you develop that relationship. So that's the main thing. But I'm going to bring in a couple of questions, Ms. Sullivan. Okay.
Great, great. Hello again, hello again.
Hi.
Hi, so back to this product that I have. I am in the process of scaling. Totally new to me. A lot of things are being put in front of me. One of the first things was the NDA from the company that's going to do the manufacturing for me. And so where I am now, that makes me extremely uncomfortable is they are asking for my recipe. And I have no legal, I have a lot of common sense, but I have no legal representation. Is that an area where you focus on, where you can give some assistance?
Well, let me just chime in really quick and this, just say this. So you're looking for somebody to basically like mass produce your products, right?
Correct.
Okay, so ultimately, let's just say, okay, we all heard of an NDA, making people sign an NDA, all of that good stuff, right? Now, long story short, and I got to get a little story onto there. NDA, in the words of and I'll let Robin chime in on this as well too. But at the end of the day, does an NDA prevent people from doing something, or does it make it a better case if something go down? You got some type of paperwork. Now you can chime in on that, Robin. See what your thoughts.
You're correct, Courtney. So an NDA is a great thing to start out with. So it's twofold. So most time people will say, well, sign this NDA and not have a confidentiality agreement, or they have a confidentiality agreement and not have an NDA, because people think they're the same thing. They're interchangeable, but they're not the same thing. Like, people use them interchangeable, but they're not the same thing. Courtney's absolutely correct. That NDA is going to cover you in the event you go to trial. If you have to go to court or there's a dispute, you can say, hey, I've turned my formula over and they have violated my rights by doing A, B, and C. So let's say they give it to another company, or their website or their emails get hacked and they have your formula. Like, you have something to cover you. But at the end of the day, in business, it's one of those things like you're taking a chance, because you don't know the other person on the end of that email. You're just praying that they do the right thing. Always sign an NDA, make sure it's very specific, but know that you're going to have to give your formula to somebody to mass produce.
Right, I do have to say that. Right. They're going to have to get it now. Otherwise they're going to put some, some Kool-Aid or something in that thing, but.
They presented me with the NDA first, a mutual agreement second, and I've read it, and it seems like common language, but I don't want to just refer on my own understanding. Is that something that I can put in front of you, Robin?
Absolutely. So something that Courtney is good at is, although it might seem like it's plain language, I typically come back and ask her about 10 or 15 questions, like she said. And it's just things that I look at from the outside that, well, what if this happens? And is there an out in this agreement? Because we're always talking about, how do you get out of this, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that it's not one-sided, because although it's not legal to make a one-sided contract, most companies have a one-sided contract. So we need to make sure it absolutely says what you think it says. And we also need to make sure that you're covered, and that they didn't leave something out that's pretty standard, or something that I've already seen dealing with Courtney's situation, where I'm like, wait, but this is typical, but it's not in your contract as a new business owner. So just from trial and error experience, we've kind of narrowed down things that we absolutely expect in an agreement. That's a non-disclosure, that's a confidentiality agreement. Anything that comes across my desk, I pretty much know, like, it's going to need to have at least 17 paragraphs
Right.
because to cover you as the customer. So you absolutely can.
Yeah, and let me just say this, we've been dealing with each other for this long. I have yet to give her an agreement that she didn't come back with some questions. Let me just say that. And a lot of times, and even, we've even gone through, like when you was reviewing for the first warehouse, you had a list of questions for that, but I switched and went to another one. That's a whole different person, a whole different thing. So both of them are still warehouse agreements, but the language was totally different. And she was like, but Courtney, this contract is really one-sided. And it's so crazy how many people we deal with that you can tell that nobody has ever challenged their agreement before. Nobody has ever challenged. And these are like big companies. They're like, oh, well, this is the biggest player here in Orlando. And I'm like, well, so we still got 20 things we need changed in this agreement. And guess what? They change them.
They do.
They do. They know you're not crazy.
That's true. I didn't think about that, Courtney, but you're right. I will tell Courtney, hey, this is really one-sided. And don't believe everyone you present 20 to 25 things to a company that's always done business the same way, they're going to give you everything. So we always say, what is it that you absolutely want out of this? And most of the time is you always need the exit strategy. Okay. You always need to know, in the event that they can't do what you need, how do you get out of this thing? Because you won't believe how many companies will fail to put an exit strategy on behalf of the person that signed the lease, because they don't care if you can get out of it or not, as long as they are covered. Now, I understand if we go to trial, then that's not even legal. It's no way you can hold a person hostage.
Robin got down to a tree falling on the building. I'm like, girl, we got to put this in there. She's like, okay, what's considered X, Y, Z? And this legit, because the crazy thing is, when this stuff happens, you can go right back to that contract, like, what that thing say now? What did I sign? So you got to be super careful with these agreements. I'm sorry, I wouldn't, at this point, I'm not signing anything, nothing, without having her to review it. I'm not. Been there, done it. And every time I think is always something, it always bites me in the butt. Always. Every single time. But yeah, you're gonna have to, if they're gonna mass produce. I think the funniest story was, so like I said, I use different attorneys for different things. So when entertainment, obviously a lot of I'm getting into the entertainment as far as like television, music, songs, things like that. So I was dealing with an attorney, and they signed the NDA that they can't talk about the stuff that I went to them for. And they came back to me and was like, oh, I wound up telling somebody about your new project, and they're really excited. They would love to meet you. But in my head, I'm like, but you signed the NDA saying that you're not supposed to talk about it. So I understand you're saying it on my behalf. You're trying to help, but I'm just going to show you at the end of the day, it's still a piece of paper. She was an attorney. She was an entertainment attorney, but yet she signed the NDA and was like, I just told somebody about your project. Well, nobody was supposed to know about the project. So again, it's a piece of paper, like she said, but at the end of the day, it's going to you got to do what you have to do. So always handle your business properly, right? Just in case some things come and bite you in the butt, you got your documentation in order. This is why I always say, y'all focus on your brand, because you can't help if some crazy stuff go down. Some crazy stuff go down, somebody else got your formula, all that good stuff, but on the back end, they still rocking and rolling. It may take you a few years in court. Meanwhile, what you gonna do?
That's right.
Miss Turner.
Yes. Hi, guys. What I wanted to ask Robin was, how do you best vet an attorney? Like, you seem to be kind of like a general all around, and if you need to refer her to a specialist, you can do that. But how do you get somebody that's going to give you the level of care that it seems like you're giving Courtney? How do you vet them?
She's general for me. Well, tell them what else you do. What's your specialty?
Shameful. Listen, shameful. I started telling you guys that Courtney just threw me out there and was like, handle this. So I went to the DA's office for 4 years. So Courtney and I broke up for 4 years, guys.
Girl, she fired me, y'all. Can y'all believe that? I said, what?
I had to go get some trial experience, because you never know. Listen, guys, this is so important. When you're hiring an attorney, you need to make sure that they are able to go to court. They need to be able to try a case, because you never know how far litigation is going to go. It might start out, oh, we just going to mediate this thing. We might do arbitration. But what I have found to work best is, well, let's just try it. That's my personality. Like, I always posture myself that if I have to go to trial, if I have to go to court, what does our case look like? So I went to the DA's office to learn how to try cases. And so I left there 4 years later, like, I got it now, Courtney. I'm back in private practice. Come on.
I'm like, girl, do I say congratulations? I said, I guess I'm supposed to say congratulations. Like, I don't think there was ever an African-American like assistant DA in that district before. So I'm like, congratulations, I guess. You know.
That's exactly what you said. You were not happy for me.
Oh my God.
But listen, I'm gonna answer your question, Ms. Turner. But let me tell you, when I came back in private practice, she was my first client. I was like, hey, Courtney, listen, I'm in private practice and you know, I gotta work. And that was the conversation.
Right.
But listen, Ms. Turner, give me your question again. I'm sorry, I got all off track.
So what do you look for in an attorney? So she said, you seem like you do a lot of different things for me. If they're looking for that, you know, what do they look for?
Meet the person and you determine if your spirits align. You know, the person needs to be able to be honest with you. They need to be able to tell you what they will and will not be able to do for you. And you have to know when you meet people, you have to get to a point where you're okay with being like, you might be a good person, but you're not a fit for me. So every client isn't a fit for me. And everybody don't have a relationship with me like Courtney does. But that comes from years of, first of all, we're friends, and then just knowing what she expects, right? And so be honest on your expectations. This is what I expect from you. Are you going to be able to do it? And if they're not able to do it, you try them out one time and they can't do it, fire them. And it's okay to fire them. But you're going to have to just ask around and test the waters. And that's the hard part, because people, you know, people say doctors are dealing with your lives. Lawyers are dealing with your lives. Your everyday can make or break you, right? So the hard part is word of mouth is great. But if you get in there and you realize, I thought that person was nice, I thought they were professional, but our spirits don't align, be okay with walking away, because that is your money and your life and your business.
Okay, thank you.
That's true. Okay, what we got, Ms. Sullivan? Who's next?
Charmaine Jones.
Charmaine Jones.
Hi, Mrs. Dre. Thanks again. My question is, what type of legal language should you include in a contract when you work with international contractors?
Oh, so I'm not able to answer that. But let me tell you what I do know. You need to make sure you have the basic language in a contract. So something I always tell Courtney, I actually made some notes on this one because this is really important. In a contract, you need to make sure you have agreements of the mind. So we were talking about a one-sided contract. So people go in and they think because you have a phone call that we are on the same page and we want the same thing. You need to make sure in your contract, y'all have a meeting of the minds. That means if they say that they're going to provide you with X, you need to understand what your responsibility is in order to receive this, right? Because every contract has to have some type of performance. So make sure that y'all are absolutely on the same page. Make sure whoever you're entering a contract with, they have grounds to enter the contract. So you don't want to be doing business with the assistant and the assistant is making arrangements and signing contracts, because I promise you, if that happens in Courtney and our situation, I'm going to say, well, they didn't have grounds to even go into that agreement. Courtney, you're not held liable. So you make sure whoever you're doing business with, that they have the capability to enter the contract with you and the legal capacity. You need to make sure they're of age. Like in Alabama, you got to be 19 to enter a contract, right? So make sure whoever you're doing business with, they are of legal age in that state or that country to enter a contract with you. Make sure that there's adequate consideration. So when I say that, don't ever feel like you're getting a deal. When, you know, let's say, you know, when we did the, we went through the pandemic and people were selling face masks for whatever rate, right? So don't think that if you go into a contract with a person, they're selling you face masks for 2 cents and they normally go for $2.25. You question that agreement because there has to be adequate consideration in a contract. Does that make sense? So those are the things you look for that most people think, oh, I'm getting a deal. I'm getting something out of this. You are not getting a deal. You're about to get played.
Right.
Right. But you're going to feel like you're getting a deal. So you have to really pay attention to things because sometimes things are too good to be true. Okay. Make sure that there's a valid offer and acceptance. So there's a lot of times your face was like, wait, what? Yeah. So a lot of times you can think that someone has given you an offer and you think you've accepted it, but there has been no documentation signed. So we run into a lot of times that people will say one thing and then I'll get the contract and I'm like, well, is this what you thought it was, Courtney? She was like, no, well, there's no valid offer and acceptance there. She's not accepting this because this is not a valid offer. So those are some of the things you look at, and that's just basic general contract law. So when you want to start doing international things, you need to get you an international law attorney and make sure, but those are the foundation things that as a client you look for. Like, hey, I'm not accepting this because this was not the offer. Can I really go into business with the person and their assistant just signed the contract? So look for those type of things.
I'm gonna tell you another thing too. People take you a lot more serious when they know you have a legal representation behind you. So when you're doing deals and you're doing any type of whatever, instead of quickly signing or quickly going to an agreement, you can always say, well, let me take this to my legal team or my legal advisor so we can actually walk through this thing and make sure we don't have any questions. Now, there has been times, I'm laughing that we didn't get a chance to talk about the last crazy deal that went down, which I'm thanking God that it didn't go down because I'm in a better deal that's coming. But remember when we went haywire last on the phone, he was like, Courtney, do you really want to do business with these people? This man just hung up on me. So
Courtney, you should share that story. Let me tell you, you need to share that.
We just can't say what they manufactured.
Okay, period. I got you.
But yeah, no, we were going through a deal and there were so many questions that they had. And I'm like, listen, for the most part, I don't put my attorney on the phone unless it's just like, listen, this is too many legal questions going back and forth. I think it's easier if we just hopped on a call. Now, for the most part, I'm on that call. Mm-hmm. Every now and then I'm not, but I did have my assistant on there on my behalf as well. And Mrs. Drake was on the call as well. Cause I'm about to sign this deal. And I'm just like, there's some more questions. Like she had questions. I said, it's just easier. Let's get the attorneys on the call. Anyway, how did that call go? What did you say?
I kept asking the same question because I have to be able to go back to my client, which is Courtney, and answer these questions. And I can't remember the question. It was nothing hard.
It was like an out. Like what was the expectation? What was my expectation? Like your expectation for me?
Yes, let me tell you guys, because that is so important for me, because if Courtney wants to exit a contract, I need to have an understanding of how she can get out of this contract for whatever reason, guys. And it doesn't always have to be bad blood, something happened, but you might want to move on to a different company. And that's just how life goes. Yeah. So I kept saying, well, Courtney, what's expected of you? Like, I don't understand. Because I'm on the outside, right? So I know they've had conversations, but if I can't read it and tell Courtney, now listen, A, B, and C, if you want to get out of this. So I kept asking, and I felt like I was calm. I was like, so wait, just explain to me. I'm like, I know I might be slow, I'm from the South. Just explain one more time. And they couldn't tell me. And I might have asked 3 or 4 times because I had to give my client an answer. All of a sudden I got hung up on. Like, I mean.
I'm in a master class, right? My sister come out she's like, Courtney, come on. We need you out here. I'm like, what's going on? Like, is the deal done? Come, you need to go. I come out there. Robin like, well, they just hung up on me. They said the deal was off. I'm like, what happened? But then at the end of the day, she's like, well, if me asking them, what is their expectation of you is going to tick them off to the point that they're going to hang up on me, your attorney. First of all, it's disrespectful. Second of all, if you can't ask a simple question, then I really don't need to be doing business with y'all in the first place. And like I said, I didn't trip about it. I said, because I already know Guy has something better, which he did, because a better opportunity. So I'll let you review that deal too when it comes. But a better opportunity, much better pricing, like all of that good stuff. I really didn't even want to do the deal. Let's just say that. And then for them to disrespect her like that, and just hang up the phone because she asking a question on my behalf. I'm telling you, once you get legal in there, you will see people's true colors. Either they're gonna act right or they're gonna act like they ain't got some sense. And if they don't, you don't really want to do business with them anyways, if that's the case. You know, so always, if it's like a deal, I don't even always, before you answer on the spot, let me get back in contact with you guys. Let me, my attorney may have some questions. Everything is going to make a huge difference in how they're going to respond to you, act towards you. It's not just you. I don't care if you just getting started. My legal team, like you got a slew of 50 people. I'm like, Robin, where you at? My team, he was like this. He was like her, the only one I was calling when I first got started. But always tell them that. Don't act like you make a decision on the spot. Don't act like you press. Don't act like they're doing you a favor, because at the end of the day, they're not doing it for free. Like nobody's giving you nothing for free. You know, so always let me get back to you. Let me discuss this with my team. So that makes a huge difference. You can bring the next one in. Elsa. Let it go. Okay, sorry. I had to do that. It's getting that time. Hi.
Hi, Robin. Hi. So I'm about to launch a lifestyle brand with a partner next month, and we've already been approached by potential investors. And I don't know at what point we should accept investors. I don't know who should advise me about that and who should advise me on investor agreements. What do you think?
Well, you want me to, let me jump in. I still think that there's, first of all, let me see if Robin got an answer for that. Or do you feel like that's a different area, Robin, than what you do?
I think that there's two sides to it.
Okay.
I think that you specifically need a certain type of attorney to handle anything dealing with a merger, because it sounds like you might be trying to merge or you're trying to get investors. And so you need an attorney who only handles that. If they say I handle this, that, and something else, run. And Courtney will be able to answer when you know it's time. I think that's the area for you.
Yeah, that was actually one of the attorneys that's probably that I thought could be beneficial for this conversation tonight, but I didn't ask them. But I do have an acquisition attorney, and that's the only thing that they do for me is acquisition. So again, sometimes that terminology get a little funny, and I go back to Robin like, okay, this is what the acquisition attorney said. What exactly does this mean? I think as far as when you think you need him, I think that's really a personal thing. One thing about going through from an investment perspective, as you go through, you don't know 100%. You may go in and say, you know what, I really want to like get an investor, right? I want to still be on board. I just need funding. By the end of that deal, you could be like, you know what, I'm about to sell this entire company. I'm done. And it could be vice versa, right? Exactly. So when I remember when I went through my acquisition, I was just like, you know, I don't think I want an investor. I think I want to do acquisition. You know, I want to come on as a shareholder. I want to have X amount of shares in here. But again, that can change. And I think the representation of people that's doing, like she said, if they feel like they're doing all of these things, I would definitely run. But as far as acquisition and stuff go, I would go to people who only handle that kind of stuff. So if you want to send me an inbox, I can give you like some a few names. But yeah, that's the different ball game. And then when you need it, like I said, when I went through the acquisition, I was not even trying to sell my company. I just literally wanted to see what was it valued at, what was the valuation.
Yeah, we haven't even launched.
You haven't even launched?
Haven't even launched, and we have people, offering to be investors. Now, I don't know if that threatens kind of like the vision of our company.
I wouldn't say it was. It's funny because I remember one of the ladies who wound up being one of the biggest players in regards to who we was actually going to do the deal with. This lady has been hunting me down, when I say like early on in the business, so much that I didn't even take her serious. I said, this can't be. She was like, oh, we're looking to, I said, no, it can't be. She was just couldn't be. come out to be like a multi-billion-dollar company. But I'm like, darn, if I would have known that, sure, I would have made some decisions earlier. Anyways, but it happens. So you don't, you know, if you're looking to do 100% control, just understand that if anybody puts some type of money on the line in the mix, there is going to be some type of stipulation, period. If they give you some type of money, there is going to be something you're going to have to pay by their rules somehow. Now, as far as what level that is, it's really going to depend on what type of investment you're getting from them. But once they get to put some skin in the game, you best believe how you do all of that, you definitely going to have to somehow, I don't want to say answer to people, they never will position it that way, but when it all goes down, you never have the free control that you have right now.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to mess up the balance that my partner and I already have, because we're on the same page and we have the same vision.
Right. I would probably I would get it rocking and rolling first, and then kind of see how you feel. You know what I mean? Like once you get launched and you see how things go and things of that nature, you're like, do I need an investor, or do I need just like a bigger line of credit at the bank? Do I need like something from a strategic perspective, or do I need, so you'll know exactly what you need. I think it's a little to do it now. I mean, you will have, if you got a good business, definitely you'll have some people interested now. But I think to have a good idea of what you really want, I will probably wait just a little bit longer so you can see what exactly is that need. Because we have the ability to do a deal with like a lot of people. And I didn't want to do a deal with somebody who could just give me money. I'm like, no, I need strategy. I need someone who has pool in other countries. I need someone who can do X, Y, Z. So you will know what the actual need is once you launch. Cool. Hi, how are you?
Hi, hello, Miss Courtney. How are you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Amen, amen. Well, I'm going to say my questions real quick. The first one is, I'm looking forward to your next conference, and I really don't have a business. I don't have a business idea. I have a lot of training and educational credits. But I don't have an idea. So I'm hoping that you have a component in your next boss conference.
Yeah, so most people, to be honest, I would say, I don't even want to say 50-50. You know, I think it's probably more people who don't have businesses who come to my conference, just getting that knowledge and that preparation of what they want to do. So we have a lot of business owners that come, but we do also have a lot of people who legit just utilize it as one, either a retreat, two, just different resources and connections and networking. So you definitely don't have to have a business. And we structure it that way on purpose. Robert, you know, you didn't come, my bad. She canceled on me, y'all. She canceled because she said she was pregnant. I'm like, girl, so.
Whole story. I am high risk, guys.
That's true. I said, that's true. You are high risk. You got to be on the bed, on the couch. You can't move. Okay, that's true. But
my second quick question is blood and money. Please, if you could speak to that. And when I mean blood and money, you know that saying blood and money don't mix. How have you handled family into the business? But you know, sometimes it's that cousin, that auntie, or even sibling or parent that is not business minded, don't know how to run a business, but you know, how do you know? How do you say no?
Like this. No. Like that. So let me say this. I take my business very serious. Let me just say that. And I let that be known off the rip. Now, what does that mean? That means if you have a skill that matches the need that I have, that I would take it into consideration if you are a family member or not. Let me just say that. Am I going to put you just because you're a family member, just give you a job just because? Depends which department we're talking about. So when you say blood and money don't mix, and it's really any blood. I'm gonna be quite honest, but it could be challenging, but I think you have to stick to your guns. I've terminated family members and I've terminated strangers. If you need to go, I don't care if you're cousin Ray Ray, you got to go. You know, and I make it known that I'm not playing that game across the board with anybody. So I take my business very serious. So I wouldn't be forced to hire family if indeed you don't think they qualify for it. They're not qualified. Just because they your mama, that don't mean they need to be human resource manager. You know what I mean? Unless they skilled in that area. So it's a delicate situation. But one thing I've learned over the last 8 years is I've now become very unapologetic in the way that I operate. Because at the end of the day, when you're an entrepreneur, you are the one that's putting up all the risk, the only one, right? So your name is on the line. You're on the line. So again, I've come to the point, well, my no is a no. What they say, let your yay be yay, your no be no. It is. It just no. This is how I say it. Respectfully, no, I'm not. I got family right now. Are you hiring? Unfortunately, not. I'm not. And guess what? I'm not going to even put a lie behind. You know, back in the day, we like to be like, no, because I'm fully staffed. I'm actually not fully staffed, but I can't hire you. No. And if anybody get offended from that, what can you say?
She also need to think about, Courtney. If you decide to deal with your family, you need to have the same level of contracts, confidentiality contracts, with your family members. You also need to, especially with them. And if you're gonna be partners, you need to have a partnership agreement. Everybody needs to understand what they're expected to do in this relationship, because it's a marriage. If you're going to business with a family member, you're now marrying someone as far as business, and make sure, in the name of, well, you know, we family, everybody gonna be good. You're not gonna be good at the end of the day when you're talking about dollars and who wants to run certain areas in the business. Most people don't have boundaries. And so you enter an agreement with a family member and y'all don't have it laid out, the roles and responsibilities, it's probably gonna end badly.
Yeah, it can definitely be a challenge. I mean, at the end of the day, who wants to terminate, somebody? At the end of the day, if it's a stranger, you don't have to ever see that stranger again. But you could terminate a family member, and it's like, okay, you see them on holidays, all of that good stuff. So I try to be very consistent in the way that I operate my business. It's not about favors. It's not about, I'll give anybody an opportunity. Let's say it's a shipping department and I have a need. I'll give anybody an opportunity. Now, what you do with the opportunity is totally up to you. Totally up to you. And then that's how I proceed. But when you say how to say no, it's just a no. Miss Yetta, we'll take one more.
Hi.
Hi, girl.
Hey, long time no here.
Right. With my masterclass ladies.
My question is to Robin. At what point in the business, because I will be relaunching the business thanks to Courtney, come Friday, yay. So it seems like you came on pretty early with Courtney. So at what point in my business would you suggest that I should find me a Robin?
Yesterday.
Okay.
I say that because go ahead and start shopping around. Nobody ever tells you to shop around for a lawyer, right?
Right.
You find one person and everybody's like, yeah, that's who everybody goes to. Find who works for you. Okay. Because you need a person who, however your personality is, right? Right. And I'm just using Courtney as an example, but I understand that although Courtney and I are friends, that we have a business relationship. Right. So if Courtney say, hey, I need it ASAP, I'm like, okay, well, I might have quarter something, but this is when I can get it done. Or if she says, hey, I really need this done last week, I have to maneuver things. And you have to make sure the person, whoever you hire, is willing to do that. Because as a business owner, the reality is a lawyer always gonna have cases. So you have to prioritize, but you don't want them to feel like because you're a new business owner, then I'm gonna put her on the back burner, right? And know that everything's not an emergency, but when it is an emergency, they need to understand that your business is important and this is something that needs to be handled right away. So go ahead and start, right? Don't wait until you like blow up and you're like, hey, let me get these people on board, because you're going to blow up. You know, you're going to blow up, right?
Yeah.
That's right. So go ahead and get your people lined up, and they need to understand that you're going to blow up. As an attorney, I will want you to blow up, right? Because the more contracts you do, the more you're going to hire me. Okay. They need to have that mindset that, hey, I need my client to do well. They need to set you up for success and make sure they have that in mind. If you go in there and they're treating you like, oh, she's just a startup, it's no big deal, run. I had no clue Courtney was going to be who she is. Like, I didn't know that, right? And sometimes I forget she is. Like, if they have that mindset and they're treating it like, oh, she's just a small business, that's not your lawyer.
Right. Okay.
So,
yes, that's my philosophy in business. Like, you shouldn't even have to know. Like, there's a lot of times, like I do business with people, and I'm not saying what I've done or anything like that. I just want to see how you're going to act, just period. You know what I mean? And I think that makes a big difference, like she said. But if you have already started a business, I guarantee you, from anybody that has any type of agreement that you have to sign, you really don't want to. Like I said, I want to reiterate that. We've been working together all these years, and I have yet to give her something to review that she did not come back with questions. Have yet to happen. And that says a lot. That says a lot. That means that you can read this thing all day long, but they're reading it with a different eye. Is there anybody like your manufacturers that you're dealing with? Anything. It could be small thing, even short-term agreement. That thing has to be super small for me not to be able to send it over. And still, you want to make sure you got representation, because at the end of the day, like she said, you don't know when things are just going to pop off. You don't. I legit, and I'm being very transparent with you guys, I didn't even have my formulas. They told me that I had it. We had an agreement. And let me just say this, another thing that I had to learn before I finish that one out, about a contract being executed. Like, I had to learn the hard way. So you got a contract, you sign it, they sign it, and then they send it back, right? So I think we had an agreement and I signed it, and I don't think I ever got it back, or whatever it wasn't executed. There was a signature on it, but I never had the contract and both of our signatures was on it. In my head, oh, I didn't sign it, I'm good. But I never had documented that they signed it and they gave it back to me. You know what I mean? So these are so many lessons. And like I said, it was said that, okay, you own your formula. So I'm like, oh, I'm good. I own my formulas. Listen, it came down to the wire, the last minute. I'm like, oh, let me send those. And I should have been on top of my formulas. I was just selling, just moving. And it's small stuff. You're like, oh, okay, I already know. I had her to do the agreement. We already said that I'm gonna own my stuff, all that kind of stuff. What I should have done was kept getting my formulas as I formulated. In my head, I was like, oh, every day, okay, I get it. A year turned into 2 years, 2 years turned into 3 years, and time just went on. Now it came down to the wire where I actually needed it, because I was going through an acquisition and or investments, like Elsa mentioned. They may say, do you own your stuff? What do you own? And I'm like, yeah, I got it. I go to ask for it. They're like, well, no, because it says XYZ. Matter of fact, he told me, he was like, we really don't even have an agreement. He was like, because it was never executed. I'm like, oh, we're not going to play this game now. I'm like, I know we're not going to play this game. After all the money that I have spent, I know. But at the end of the day, like she said, people will be your best friends. Listen, y'all can be like this. Let some stuff go down, or they think they about to start losing some money, or whatever the case may be, and you don't have your ducks in order. And that's, like I said, that was the main reason for even having Robin tonight. So again, if you don't have your stuff together, people are there and they are waiting to have any type of loopholes, a clear understanding. There was something I sent her. I said, listen, I just don't have a clear understanding of what they're trying to say. And if it's not clear, they need to make it clear. So don't ever feel like you can't kick that stuff back and say, no, I think I need this thing to be written like this, because right now it's a little bit too difficult. And they do that on purpose. People structure that stuff like that on purpose just because. I forgot what the question was, but you know, what we talking about?
I think we hit it.
But no, I want to, but first of all, again, you guys, the whole purpose of these, I want to continue to do this. Of course, you guys know I'm very passionate about small businesses. Wherever I can do to be a resource. If you got any questions, you guys know in the morning time, I'll probably go live about 7 o'clock most of the mornings answering your questions, because I know people that everybody can afford to go through the master class and stuff like that. I want to be able to be a resource to introduce you guys to people and just to understanding what networking is. Of course, we've met on social media. Like I said, get on LinkedIn. Most of the people y'all trying to do business with are right there on LinkedIn, ready to link. I've made huge deals by just contacting, linking in with somebody on LinkedIn. Huge deals, right? So while we on Instagram and stuff like that, that's cute. That's cute and all. But I'm telling you, manufacturers, investors, they're all right there on LinkedIn, ready to do business with you. Get your accounts together, get your personal account together, link it to your business account, keep it updated. And like I said, I wanted just to be able to bring different resources to you. Robin, I want you to be able to drop your information and stuff in here if you can, before you go back to the DA's office or whatever. I want to make sure that they
Shady Grady.
Drop your information in the chat so they'll be able to, like I said, my thing was, I wanted to bring you guys the best of the best tonight. And when I say the best of the best, because I've been using the same people day one. Like Brian, he legit just started the company when I did. And they're legit like one of the largest that's in the United States and the world, actually. So again, I just want to be that resource to you guys. We'll continue to have these conversations. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up in the morning time. But yeah, make sure you drop your information in there. And thank you guys. Thank you guys. Make sure you get my shot here. Yeah, so just want to say thank you guys. You know, we like to do our goodbyes and stuff. So unmute if you first before Robin, if you got anything else to say before I unmute everybody. So we like to say our goodbyes together.
Oh, no, first of all, thank you for having me. This is out of my comfort zone, and I put on a pink shirt trying to follow the rules with my pink mug. I don't do calls, but you know, Courtney's so shady about me these days. I don't know, I didn't show up. Listen, but no, thank you. And guys, good luck with your businesses. Please go get you an attorney. Make sure that they care about you and you trust them, because they are holding something valuable, which is your life, your business, your baby. Thank you guys, and good luck. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you. We can unmute everybody. Miss Jamia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for the knowledge. Thank you.
Bye.
See you in the morning.
See you
In the morning.
in the morning.
Bye. Bless you. God bless you for always. Hi, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, Courtney. Good night, Courtney.
She can wear the shoes too.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Tell Miss Courtney, thank you for the shoes, London.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a blessed week. Thank you.
Guys, do the same.
Thank you for the shoes.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney, so much. Thank you.
Everybody blessings.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for my shoes, and I can wear them.
Uh-oh.
You hit it on. It was spot on.
Aw, thank you.
All right.